If you can and you're willing to support us, please do so. We'd really appreciate it. We're trying to expand the platform, trying to pay these bills. You can go to dgutspodcast.com. That's Don't Give Up the Ship apparel, some naval pride and heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. Get shirts, hoodies, shower shoes, drawstring bags, all kinds of cool stuff. Dope stickers like these. You can get logo stickers. We got the Enlisted Deviant stuff, all kinds of cool stuff. More to come. Working on lots of designs all the time. We also have the podcast challenge coin, just came out. I'm really proud of that. And then if you also are willing to and able to, please go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast. A lot of really cool benefits, tiers, all kinds of cool stuff to try to drive support for the financial side of the platform. There's demands on all of the things that I want to do to expand, cost money, all the services and subscriptions and all those things. And I am trying to turn this thing into a business and a job so that I can do that and devote all my time to providing more content, services, whatever I can do that helps you out. So if you're willing and able, please go to dgutspodcast.com. You can also go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast and become a member today. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Don't Give Up the Ship podcast, episode 112. And today I am talking to fantastic CTI. Sorry, I get them confused. I'm new here. So the CTI1 that I have, I've recorded a bunch of podcasts that'll come out after this where I affectionately refer to her as Mini-Me because, as you'll see, very similar in the way that we see the world of naval leadership on the enlisted side of the house, especially. And we went through a ton of different like aspects of that and went pretty deep on a lot of them. And then you'll see what I mean. It's pretty hilarious. And then also she's working on starting a podcast that will be distributed through me. So I'm really excited about that as well. So without any further ado, check it out. Now I'm gonna be looking over here now because of the video. But all right, so like we talked about, just start with like quick bio. You don't go into as much detail as you want to, just so the listener has some context on who you are and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
All right, so I'm CTI1 Arianna LaChiusa. I'm a Spanish linguist. I've been in the Navy for almost 13 years, and of that, I want to say it's probably a little different than traditional Navy. Yeah. I had the first 7 years in a joint command in the same UIC, did not move, nothing changed. We were just limited in our options. From there, I transferred, and I've spent the last 5 years in the same UIC that I'm in now.
Wow.
Although I've only been to 2 commands, I've been through 4 tours, and I've dealt, everyone else has turned over, maybe not everyone, but a lot. So even though it's the same building, it has felt very different as I've gone through it. And I've had a lot of bumps along the way, some bigger than others. I've learned a lot. And I just keep doing what I can do in the meantime.
Yeah.
Less than 30 days and ready to move on to the next adventure, to an actual new place, a real new.
Nice.
Yeah.
See hopefully a different part of the Navy, sort of.
Exactly.
So what's one of the things that's interesting to me about the CT community is how wildly different it seems to be from the rest of the Navy. Like because you just described a little bit of it, like, can you kind of go into some of that? Like, and I know you haven't necessarily experienced the rest of the Navy, so comparing and contrasting might be a little difficult, but you have an idea of what it's like. So like, how different do you have like friends that are like, I don't know, like a BM on a ship, and then you guys kind of like talk about it, and like, I'm curious to know like how wildly different it is, and like good thing, bad thing, a little bit of both.
Yeah. My brother joined the Navy before I did. He was a nuke on a carrier for a couple years. And that was why I joined the Navy, because we were poor and I didn't have any money. And he had all this. He had a car. He had a place to live. He had health insurance. I was like,
just talking to John Rennie about that, about how big of a leap forward it is for economically disadvantaged people to join the military. I was reading a psychology paper about they were talking about like race playing a role in incarceration rates, and then they were looking at it through the lens of like veterans and non-veterans, and it was way lower among veterans, and that's one of the things they were like theorizing was that because it's like such a huge leap forward. Like you get paid relatively well. They provide you with everything, which is kind of an
Place to live, food,
yeah,
transportation. You can get on a
unseen
bus.
benefit. Yep. Health insurance, everything. You don't have to worry about anything. And then there's all the benefits of like tuition assistance, a GI Bill. So you can buy a house, you can get a college education. That's all before you even get out of the military. And then if you stick around and retire, you get a pension, you get potentially VA benefit, all this stuff. And I mean, it's like a huge leap forward.
I felt
So like
like I was
it's
going into
interesting.
like luxury from, and
Yeah.
not poverty or anything. I mean, we survived,
Yeah.
we were fine, but
Right.
my mom worked hard. Like
Yeah.
it was a big motivator for me to see my
Mhm.
brother supporting himself on his own. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So, but he was in the Navy for 4 or 5 years. He was on a carrier right away. I mean, power school and all that took a really long time, but
Couple years.
I mean, he did that. So I joined the Navy, and in my first 7 years in that joint command, as CTs, most of us worked together. So command, I had CTIs, CTRs, a couple CTNs. There was a bunch of them. They just didn't work in my general location. And now I work with like ISs, ITs, things like that too. So what's different is that that first tour, that first command, it was a joint command. Now this one that I'm at now is a pure Navy command. And so my whole experience in the Navy, the first 7 years, I had different OpCon and AdCon. So my boss that I worked for every day was a Marine, or I worked for the Air Force too for a while. But I still had an LPO. I had a chief, but I didn't really interact with them that much. I just, when I needed to route something, or it was time for evals, or they wanted something from me, it wasn't a day to day anything. Stuff going on in my personal life. None of that was addressed with my chain of command from the Navy. They just weren't involved because they didn't see me that often. We weren't even, sitting in the same type of space. And then I came here where I am now, and it's pure Navy. I mean, those are the people that you're with every day, and you see them all the time for the most part. And it's kind of a small command, but we do have a lot of people. I'm friends with someone who was a prior BM that converted to a CT rating. There's another one who was an MU and then converted to CT. And
it's a wild transition.
Right. Yeah. I don't think
like, I want to be in the real military. Can I go do something else?
Yeah.
That's funny.
And so that's something that gets said all the time in our community. And I felt like guilty for a while, that because people would say, oh, you're not in the real Navy when you get to the real Navy.
I don't think that's true. Like, and not of CTs. That's
exactly. And so CTRs, they do have a normal sea shore flow, and CTIs generally do not. We're very limited in where we can go, especially depending on your language ability and all that.
We had CTIs on the boat when we would do, particular missions, but it wasn't always, and there was only a handful of there was the CT detachments. They were anywhere from we take 4 to 6 on some things, and then
but they're not PCS afloat, right? They fly out.
No, they're just hanging out. Yep, they go on deployment, and then when the mission's over, first opportunity to get off the boat, they're gone. So
absolutely.
A lot of them got their fish though, which I had a lot of respect.
That's awesome.
So that was cool.
But I felt really bad, or not good enough for a long time, because I wasn't in the real Navy, and I let that get to me. And then finally, I don't remember who it was, but someone explained, this is as real as it's going to get for you. This is your Navy. This is real for you. This is going to be your job, probably just like this, as long as you're in, and you need to take it and don't feel like you're disadvantaged. And I'm going to work with what I have, and not to discount what anyone in the Navy does, but considering where we're at in the technology in the world, this is so important.
Oh yeah.
This plays a big role.
Our intel is what is the reason why Ukraine is hanging tough. You know what I mean? It's not a small thing what you guys do. And also, who you telling about struggling with value in the I was a cook for 21 years. And not just a cook in the Navy. I was a cook on submarines, and it's wildly different the way at least it seems to be. The more people I talk to, the more I get this impression that the surface community, it's not like that. Cooks are just another rate on the ship doing their job, blah, blah, blah. On submarines, we're the redheaded stepchildren. Everyone talks trash about, which it's insane to me to hear so many people who I consider smart say such stupid things, knowing full well that this could sound a little arrogant, but I'm the smartest person in the room in most rooms I'm in. I know I'm intelligent, and it's I'm sitting here having to listen to you telling me, what do you know about a cookie? Like, dude, shut up. Like,
We
it
have a
just
really
blew
big
my
problem with
mind.
that in the
Yeah.
intelligence community because these people
Mhm.
score really high on their ASVAB or they're very,
Oh,
very
because
capable at
that's a
some
measure of
technical skill.
intelligence. I score real high on
Exactly.
my ASVAB too, clowns, and I was a
And
cook anyway.
yeah, yeah. But there's a lot of people think that they are
Gross.
intelligent and that gives
Like,
an
I'm in the intelligence
equal
community,
value of
so
something
ipso
different.
facto, I'm intelligent.
No, no, it's rough out here. I won't lie to you. But yeah,
Funny.
there's a lot of difference to quote unquote the real Navy, the big Navy, the
Mhm.
seagoing Navy. But it's
Yeah.
just as real for us as it is for anyone else. We get paid the same. We wear the same uniform, and this is my very real job that
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to do.
What
So
are the opportunities for, because you mentioned a little bit before we started recording, but what are the opportunities like for you to deploy or anyone in your like community to deploy?
it does depend, and there's differences based on rating. So as a
Mhm.
CTI, it goes off of your language, and we have different categories of
Okay.
language, and you got to think about what's going on in the world and what we might want to do
Right.
with that. Me as a Spanish linguist, not so hot right now.
Not so much going
Right,
on.
but I know, I have friends who are CTIs who have done sub duty, they've done air crew, they've done
Mhm.
different direct support missions. That's where they've been assigned. So it does exist. It is possible.
Yeah.
It's not always
So
available. So
there's
my
opportunity,
double
but it's pretty low.
exactly like my back-to-back tours in these two places was because that
Mhm.
was literally the only thing available to me every time I was up.
Gotcha.
So I want to say, I think the last time that I looked at orders, not for this transfer, but the one before, there was a direct support for an air mission, but
Mhm.
I was LIMDU at the time. And so I couldn't execute.
Oh,
And they were like,
gotcha.
nope, just stay. You're fine. It's
So do,
okay. Stay here.
do they have so if they don't have opportunities for deploy, is there like a variety of duty at all in like, are there instructor billets or are there like higher echelon leadership things or what, or is it all just bouncing from like intelligence gathering place in a black box to another intelligence gathering place in a basement? You know what I mean? Like, is
Yes,
it
I'll
is
say for the most part, it's pretty much the bouncing around for the most
okay.
part, especially for the CTIs.
Mhm.
Like I said, I'm Spanish linguist, like 90 something percent of our billets are in one box. And then
Okay.
where I am now, I'm one of two. And where I'm
Okay.
going next, there's 9 total billets with that NEC with all ranks. Like if there's not a lot
Okay.
of opportunity. We
Damn.
have little onesie twosies here and there. There's special duties that you can do. And
Yeah.
depending on our manning, there are times where they say, absolutely not, we're not releasing anyone for anything special, no RDCs, no
Yeah. Yeah.
instructor, no
Yeah. Yeah.
recruiting. But then other times where, hey, we're a little overmanned, but we don't want to lose you completely because we're going to need
Right.
you. So you can go out of rate for, one of these special tours. And then things, the CTNs and the CTRs are a little different. There are some CTNs don't have a normal sea shore flow. They have an OCONUS,
Mhm.
INCONUS flow. And so sometimes they will have sea duty that
Mhm.
I know of one option for them. And I've heard great things about it. I know CTNs who couldn't wait to go back and that's their
Mhm.
personality type. And there's others who would be totally fine to never see water ever again in their life. And they can probably get away with doing that
Yeah,
because
yeah, and it wouldn't
it's
even
not
harm their
available and
career
people
progression
want it.
because
Absolutely.
it's not their career
Absolutely.
progression. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Okay.
it's just not there.
So what I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but like I feel like you have a certain level of like frustration with the community. So like, if that's accurate, and tell me if it's not. Like, what keeps you going? Like, what keeps you around this long? What keeps you motivated to continue doing that and like promoting to chief hopefully and then going from there?
Well, I do have some frustrations and they vary
Mhm.
on, what exactly the root cause of it is, but then
Right.
there's been different things that have kept me around depending when I'm a single mom of 2 kids
Mhm.
and when my first enlistment was coming up, I had just had a baby 3 months prior and so I was like, yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to go back to being
Probably
poor and not having health
probably a good
insurance.
time to stick around. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go
Fair
ahead and do
enough.
another reenlistment and
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
finish my degree and I'll be ready
Mhm.
and then I'll get out.
Then I'll be ready to get
Um,
out. Yeah. Like
exactly.
the
And then
unicorn that is that concept of ready to
yes.
get out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I did my next tour and by say next tour, I mean our first enlistment contract for most CTs is
Yeah.
6 years. So
Okay.
I did the 6 and then I was working on the next 4. And during
Mhm.
that set, I went through those big big roadblocks and speed bumps that I mentioned earlier. And I was this close to getting out of the Navy. I was limb due for mental health. I had lost
Yeah,
my
I was going to say,
clearance.
are we allowed to talk about the big speed bumps?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like
I
I
don't
didn't know
mind
how.
at all.
All right.
It's been way beneficial for me in the end. But
Hmm.
I had lost my clearance due to mental health. I was on
Okay.
limb due for mental health. I had returned my Seaway quota to intend to separate to get out of the Navy. I had dealt with some unfortunate leadership that directly influenced me, and I let it influence me more than it probably should have, along with a lot of other things going on with my life and my family and things like that. And so it was just all of this stuff just piling on me that I just couldn't take it anymore, and I was ready to go. And fortunately, I got reevaluated. I was cleared from mental health. I was let back into the black box, the building that we work in. But I didn't go back to the division I was assigned to. They didn't want me anymore. I was seen as this problem child after these issues that had come up previously. So I was sent to go work in the holding division department in the command. And we had a senior chief acting as he was the department chief. He had just been there at the time. He's now a master chief, but he was the home for broken toys, people that were not cleared or in a med board
That's my
status or whatever.
favorite thing is the island of misfit. Like, send me everybody. My favorite stories in the military are people like that like, I had a kid that he had been kicked off 2 different submarines, was sitting at a submarine squadron. The Commodore was going to process him out of the Navy. For whatever reason, there was a change in the winds, and he told the squadron CS, he's like, hey, if you can find a boat for him, I'll second chance into that boat. And my buddy Rob called me and goes, hey man, I got this kid, blah, 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 blah. He needs a boat. Do you like any, and dude, say less, send him down. Like, yes.
Yeah.
I don't even, cause if you think about the things like that practically, it's like worst case, like this kid is on strike 2.5, right? 2.75, whatever. Like, right. It's like, if he even looks at me,
sneezes wrong,
he's out of the Navy, right? So worst
won't be your
case
problem
scenario,
for long.
Yeah, worst case scenario, he comes down here, does something stupid. I boot him back to Squadron 5, or I shouldn't footnote that. I don't want to put the name out there. Look at me slipping up. I mean, it's not a big deal. I try to censor myself from saying
that's fair. That's fair.
But send him back up to Squadron, and then he's out of the Navy. And then best case scenario, and I also like being a little bit of an optimist in these scenarios anyway. I was like, worst case scenario, I get him for he's going on deployment with us. So I get him for that deployment. He's a warm body to do something. And then he screws up and gets processed out of the Navy. So I get my manning bumped up for that one deployment, which is amazing. And then I'm like, so that's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, this kid
is around.
What happened. Yeah, best case scenario is what happened. He found a sense of belonging amongst people and leadership that cared about him, and he flourished. He got mapped to 3rd class and was just, everybody loved him. He went to the galley, he was in a really the biggest stressor he had that was causing all the actual issues, which is, I sound like a broken record, I'm sure, but when you actually find out why someone is acting contrary to the UCMJ and fix that instead of just punishing them for coloring outside the lines, shockingly, they correct themselves. Right. So it's like this kid, his issue was he was in a toxic relationship with this wife of his that they would get in a fight, and then he would drink, and then they'd get in an argument and got arrested for domestic violence because she wouldn't let him leave. She was blocking him and keeping him in the house, and stole his car keys. And when he snatched his car keys out of her hand so he could leave the situation, which is what his chief told him to do, and I would come pick him up, one of her nails broke off, and they called that assault, and they arrested him. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I was just like, come on, man, really? Yeah. And so I went and picked him up and whatever, and we got him a barracks room and did all the things, right? I was at all the court dates with him. But he finally got out of this relationship. He's his Facebook and Instagram stories look like a rom-com. Like
No.
he's so happy. He's so
awesome.
happy with his new wife. They just had a child.
Oh.
He's flourishing.
Yeah,
and it's like,
awesome.
that is to me like that's the point.
So worth
like, that's
it.
what you're supposed.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you're supposed to be doing as leaders. So like those types of situations, like I get the call that you're like, oh, they don't want her anymore. Fuck, send her over. Say less.
Right.
I don't even care. You could send you to my galley. I'd be like, say less. I'll teach you how to cook. Come on, let's go.
Someone to work. Great. Our manning is a problem. We know that.
We'll figure it out.
Yes.
It's insane.
That's what happened. And so they sent me to go work in this holding department. Not to work. They sent me to go be there. They sent me to be held in the holding department.
Yeah.
And their LPO, which historically that position had been held by whoever happened to be highest ranking, who was on their way out the door for whatever reason. And that person had literally PCS like the week prior. And so the senior chief was like, hey, can you do this for me? And then I would do it. And he'd be like, hey, can you do that? And he'd give me like a little bit more. And he had heard I was
he'd heard all the negative things about
sheep.
And
he was like, I don't really care. And because he's been through his own stuff.
Yeah. And God bless him. Like I'm like, I hear it, but I'm like, I'll be the judge of that. Like you got a completely clean whiteboard when you come to me.
Which is how it should be.
Until you make it unclean, and then it's a different thing. But, and even then, I'm probably, like, we'll work through it usually. But that's good. But good for him.
He just
Shout
fed
out to
me
Master Chief.
Yes, he's the greatest.
Hell yeah.
But just fed me like little bits just to see what I was capable of and what I was willing to do.
Yeah.
And earned better, and taught me along the way. And that was part of the thing that had gotten in my way before was
shocking.
I
revolutionary technique.
Right. And letting people fail. I think it's super valuable to do, but you have to train them when they fail.
You have to teach
them
how to do it.
You can't just let them fall on their face over and over again.
Right. And then subsequently, like, give them a hard time when they fail. And it's like, but you never taught them how to not fail.
Right.
So like, who's at fault here?
Right.
Leader?
Yes.
Like,
that was the situation that I had been through before, which had led to all these other things and just led me to be this thing that nobody wanted. And I'll be honest, I talked a lot of crap about people. I was mad. I was a victim, and I would complain to anyone who would listen to me. And that's not how you do that. I learned.
But it's understandable. Like there was the appropriate inputs to get that output out. Like, because again, like anytime, like, so if you have what the institution considers like a malfunctioning sailor, okay, but why? Why are they malfunctioning? What's happening? What need do they have that's not being met? And how can we fix that?
Right.
Like it's not that complicated.
Yes, I agree with you. And again, this is all like, 20 hindsight being 2020, right? Like this has been a few years now. But I was just no one would talk to me. No one in leadership would talk to me, not a single khaki. They would not approach me. They wouldn't look me in the eye. No one took me seriously. It didn't matter what it was. And so he let me kind of earn my way and eventually led to me trying to get my Seaway quota back, which we were ridiculously overmanned. And they said no. He called my ECM and was like, hey, this girl needs to stay. She got screwed. She needs to stay. That ECM called me on my cell phone over Thanksgiving break a couple of years ago. I was like, hey, I heard you want to stay. What's going on? What are you going to do? Why? We talked. Within a week, I had my quota back. I re-enlisted. I got to stay. He filled a need somewhere else. And I ended up filling in as the department chief for this holding department, but then also all these other things that I started doing, and just the complete jump of where I had been and the perception of what I was capable of and what had been put into my head of what I was capable of, then to see now just the drastic change in where I'm at that I can. I mean, it absolutely changed my entire life. I would be living in my mom's house with 2 kids, no job, no nothing. But I turned it around. And a big part of that driving factor was, that leader and more than just him in the end, who helped me along the way. But then it turned into a little bit of like pettiness, just to be honest, just a little. Yeah. Because this person had ruined me. And so, and we had a conversation once, and this person said, if you let, this one thing get to you, or if you let one person get to you,
Yeah.
you're never going to make it, or whatever. And so I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice if someday we could just cross paths? And I'd be like, well, don't you look at me now. And
yeah, I got to do that with my second leading CS on my boat, who's this just, I won't go, but he wasn't great. And then I got to see him. He retired as a first class. And I mean, I was a chief before he retired. And then I encountered him on my way out to do an inspection on a submarine as a senior chief. And he was in so we had these transfer vessels. So like to get out onto a submarine for inspection, they drive them out and then we do a transfer and they get like food and parts and whatever. And then but for the ballistic missile submarines, it's like this giant ship that's operated by like MSC or something. And there's a galley and he was in there cooking me breakfast. And
nice.
I was just like, I walked by, I was grabbing my eggs and stuff off the line, looked up, briefly made eye contact. He pretended
Good morning.
he pretended like he didn't see me.
Right.
But I was in uniform, senior chief anchors all shiny. I was just like, what's up, dude?
Yep.
Who's not going to amount to what now? Yeah.
And just for the two of us, for later, just to say that I wasn't there. I was in a class, so I was out that week. But that person had come to the command to that building to participate in a OC standards or rating council or something like that. And my picture is nice and big on the quarterdeck from my Sailor of the Year win. And I was like, I hope they saw it. I really hope. But I'm like, I'm just going to let it go. And it'll all come out. And someday we'll run it. It's a small community. And someday, and as terrible as those times were, I am extremely thankful for having gone through that because I learned so much from that for myself, what to do with other people, how to respond in those types of situations. And I would absolutely not be that type of I had a big ego when I was younger. And it would have overtaken me had I not had to deal with this. I wish I hadn't had to deal with it so hard, but it absolutely helped in the long run. So but yeah, and then just being that person, what that Master Chief did for me, being that person to other people is what keeps me going every day now.
Yep. Okay. Great answer.
Because there's not enough of it, in my opinion. And I just, and you say it all the time, people are entitled to this, and they absolutely are. Like this is what we are here for. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people understand.
I was getting a paycheck. Yeah. Like, and it's the only reason you're getting a paycheck, especially when you put on khakis, because that's the dividing line where it's like to an extent, you can get away with saying, well, I'm a technical expert, or I'm an operator, or I'm a technician, or whatever you want to call it. I'm a doer.
That's not your job anymore.
When you put on khakis, it's not your job anymore. Like unequivocally, like you could make an argument that senior first classes or LPOs or people in certain positions as first classes are like, to an extent, it's not their job anymore, but also kind of is. Like, depends, blah, blah, blah. But like when you put on khakis, that's not your job anymore.
Right.
You're the only reason you're getting a paycheck to wear a khaki belt to work is because is taking care of people.
And I absolutely agree. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest frustrations that I have. And I want to say with the Navy, right? But my experience with the Navy is limited. So I'm going to at least say my community is that give a crap factor is not quite there all the time in the way that I believe that it should be. And because in my opinion, that is exactly what they're for. The upper level leadership, you are there for those sailors, for your juniors, to enable them to do their mission, to whatever it is that they're doing. And the leaders that we have, maybe not all of them, that I'm not trying to bash anyone, but so often that's not what they're doing. And it's for various reasons. I have different thoughts about why that is happening, and different ideas on how to potentially try to change it, but it's not there. And I really wish it were more often.
Yeah. I mean, whether they're conscious of it or not, I think everybody feels that way. Like everybody that is the end user of that level of leadership, it feels the exact same way. Like it's in his effort to keep that podcast short, he was asking me, like, what do you think the biggest leadership issue is that you see in the Navy? And knowing that I can't make a list here, I don't have time for that. It's just rampant leadership incompetence. And when I say that, what I mean is like the way that I painted the picture for John was like, it's like just on submarines, and this is probably true in a lot of other communities, and I don't know the details, but on submarines, we have very, very rigid qualification, proficiency, like metrics and processes, right? Like you're never going to be put in a position to stand a watch or do a thing that you're not like trained and qualified to do technically, right? But with leadership, just nothing. Just nothing.
Right.
From day one in the military until I was a 15-year chief, I got zero formal leadership development and education until I attended the Senior Enlisted Academy, unless you want to count the chief season. I happened upon the best chief's mess in the submarine force because I was in special projects, and you got to volunteer and screen and get accepted to be there. So
Nice.
that you think about the filter that imposes on
Right.
the types of chiefs that can be there, and you end up with a third tour cobb that was a CMC, and you end up with a whole bunch of just pipe hitters that are on their second chiefs tour or are already senior chiefs and master chiefs. It was like a university level education on how to be a chief.
Nice.
And just how to be like an enlisted leader. And it was incredible. And I just lucked into that. I didn't know that's what was going to happen. I showed up there first class and made chief, and then just, they kept me, which isn't normal. And then, like it
And
was a
that's
whole bunch of
awesome for
luck.
you, but
Right.
what about the
Exactly.
people who don't have that? What about
Exactly.
the people who have
That's a,
zero chiefs around because they're on
yeah.
special, especially for us, like we have some special individual things that people can do, and you might be alone
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
independent duty wearing civilian clothes to work. That's a
Yeah.
possibility, and that's
Right.
on other people to get involved and for you to seek it out, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors there, but
Right. I know a
there's
guy that
no
runs a podcast I can
threshold.
listen to.
I
I
will,
know a
yeah,
guy. I'm
yeah.
joking.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, there is no threshold, and they try to
Right.
say that there is, and that the advancement exam or
Mhm.
the board, which I have different complaints about the selection board process and how
So
it
do
works,
I.
having been on
Oh,
that side of
I was a
it,
board
right?
member on the Chiefs board, and it was I tell people, they're like, "How's the experience?" I'm like, besides having to walk out of the boardroom and pace up and down the sidewalk so my head didn't fucking explode. It was 3 times a day I had to leave the building to
Right.
not lose my shit in front of all those people.
Yeah.
Um, because I was so frustrated with the process.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's not.
I mean, I know a lot of people bash on the Chiefs mess, but I'm going to say
Mhm.
that there's plenty of good Chiefs. There's plenty of
Sure.
terrible first classes. Like
Yeah.
there's good and
And
bad
vice
leaders
versa. Yeah.
right at
Yeah.
every level, but
Right.
it's not like once you make chief, you turn into this poisonous person in this terrible group that everyone likes to loop together.
I
But
mean, a lot of people, especially E6 and below, would make an argument that that's in fact true. Just like a lot of E7 and above would make the argument that once you transition through the season, you just become this oracle of enlisted leadership.
man,
Both of
wouldn't
them are
that be
false.
nice?
Yeah, both of them are false. But
Right.
like,
But
it is a belief system that people like. Me and Paul
and
Kingsbury were talking about this today too. Like the these people conflate being a chief with their identity, and it becomes this convoluted mess where they just think by virtue of being a chief that they know what the answer is when it comes to all things leadership. And it's like they're conditioned to be unwilling to admit that that's not the case, and that they have to like actively better themselves in the absence of the leadership development and education that should be present to accomplish that. And it's like, it's such a mess because like sometimes like you're interacting with chiefs and you're talking to them and you're just like, you have no idea what you're doing, do you? And like, they're not ever going to admit that out loud, but like, it's pretty clear that they are just lost. And I can tell you from my experience, I've sat in the mess with that same chief that you probably looked at and were like, you have no idea. Like in your head, you're like, you have no idea what you're doing, do you? I've talked to them and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And they're like faces buried in their hands. And they're like, and I'm trying to coach them through those things.
But like, what are you going to do
They,
about it? Recognize you have a problem and then fix it, right? Don't just complain that you
right,
don't know what
but
you're doing.
they are conditioned by virtue of how the mess and its training is constructed and how it's aimed. It's a blind leading the blind. Like we have constructed a leadership development training, whatever you want to call it, continuum that is effectively only the 6 weeks of the Chiefs season and then the end. Like that's where it starts and ends, which it should be that whole thing should be a capstone event, but it's not. So, and that was like what they were trying to get at with like CPO 365 and Sailor 360, and it just never actually happened. It's only a name. And then, so then it's constructed, and this is what's so ridiculous. It's constructed by people who couldn't lead their way out of a wet paper bag, largely. Right. And there are people out there that know what they're doing and are doing a good job. Like I always try to caveat, like I, just like you were, like I don't think the whole Chiefs mess, like all of the individuals that are the like added up at some of its parts that comprise the Chiefs mess, they're not all incompetent. But the organization, when you get to the sum of the parts, the organization's incompetent. Like it just is. It's. Right. I would argue it's almost an objective truth at this point. Like they demonstrated it in so many ways. So it's like,
if it was okay, we wouldn't continue to promote these people that keep being the crappy leaders that we don't want.
Right. But also like if I was doing it right, they may not be the crappy leaders that we don't want by the time they arrive at that like stage where they're ready to promote to chief. Like, cause that's when I say rampant leadership and competence, I mean, they've just never been educated. Like the organization has a responsibility to train and qualify them to do whatever they're going to be doing. If not to keep them safe and when you're doing something dangerous and all those other things and to keep everyone else safe and blah, blah, blah. In the case of leadership, it's like, just so that I can be competent. And because that thing, like the tentacles go into everything. Every problem we have in the military, you could trace back to leadership, whether Absolutely. It's the root cause 100% or it's just a tertiary cause, but it's still a big, like playing a role. But it's like, we have never, like all from beginning to end, like there's probably very few leaders that have any type of formal leadership education outside of attending the Senior Enlisted Academy. When you talk about getting to that point, every bad behavior, misconception, blah, 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 has been validated by promotions and awards up to that point. So it's like you get to you can't teach an old dog new tricks euphemism or whatever. Right. And it's like, it's pretty, I mean, it's largely true. Like when I attended the Senior Enlisted Academy, I heard a whole bunch of people say out loud as I was reveling in this education I was getting that I couldn't believe hadn't happened until I had 15 years in. Just saying, oh, I don't care. I'm just here to check the box so I can make Master Chief. And I'm like, oh my God, this is wasted.
I want to kick those people in the kneecap.
This is right. And that's why I was just telling John Rennie, I think the Senior Enlisted Academy should just be a CPO academy. Like brand new chiefs should be like within the first year or two of becoming a chief should be going there. And then there should also be a whole pipeline leading up to that point that doesn't exist.
Ideally, yes.
But when I say there's rampant incompetence, that's what I mean. When I say the Chiefs mess is incompetent, that's what I mean. It's like by no fault of their own, largely. And there is an argument to be made in there that these people
they're the ones promoting the people because they sit the board.
Well, yeah, exactly. That as well, right? What I was going to say is like there's something to be said for along the way at some point. Intelligent human beings should be able to deduce on their own that I need to get better at this and just self-study and seek out the resources and mentorship they need to do that. So there is a personal responsibility piece to it, but because it didn't happen from day one, I put 99% of it on the organization. Like, cause like you said, it's too late a lot of the times, even first classes. I mean, a lot of the behavior, like I could fix it in the Chief season if the Chief season was like over
a year,
all capable of doing that, but like, well, or that or longer, right? Like, but even if the 6 weeks was capable of fixing those issues, it's not like it's not happening. Like it's not being done by people that even know what those issues look like.
I
largely.
agree.
So it's you
And I
get
had
this blind leading the blind.
yeah, I had this conversation with someone recently about evals. And the problem that we're having, and something else that I'm dealing with right now, is that we have first classes trying to hit these blocks on their evals and do all these things for the purpose of getting promoted.
Yep.
Most of them don't want to get promoted just to get promoted, right? That's not
Yeah.
the goal. It's not to make money. It's honestly not that much of a pay jump. It's not why they want to do it. It's because they care. They want to do these things. But they're conditioned to think you have to do all of these essentially self-serving things to make you look good.
Mm-hmm.
And that like you said, gets you
To
promoted.
be,
and then you have to turn it around and not
Yeah.
worry about yourself and worry about everyone else that's now working for you. And they're not capable of having that mindset. And it needs to be
the whole Chiefs season. Yeah, counterintuitively, the whole Chiefs season, we're telling you, it's not about you anymore. Like, you've been telling me it's all about me for however long, like
CDB,
the entire time.
Record review. You gotta do this.
Yep.
You gotta do this. It's like
the whole time I was all the way up until the day I'm a Chiefs select, I'm told effectively it's all about me. And then all of a sudden,
fight your way through and do everything for you.
Yeah.
Like,
and so what's funny, not funny, but it's a little fun. Like, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Getting to the Chiefs board, like getting to be a member on the Chiefs board, what I found the most maddening about that experience was we were selecting people to do a leadership job based on completely erroneous criteria. Like, you're looking at the enlisted career path of a bunch of these different sailors, and I want to know if they've checked all these boxes that are all largely self-serving so that they can be put in a position to do the total opposite. So, like, I'm not evaluating these people based on what will actually make them successful in this position. I'm evaluating them based on a subjective potential to maybe be good at it, like, hopefully. And it's like, a lot of the times it's not true. So how am I, if they've never been educated, they've never been qualified, they've never went through any type of a screening process up to that point, outside of the enlisted evaluation system, which is hot garbage. And like,
on my list
you mentioned truth in reporting, which is non-existent largely. Because a lot of it's not even because people are just overtly lying, which happens, but it's because there's what's in the eval manual, and then there's what happens in real life, and they're not the same thing. So, like, if you read in the eval manual and it could have been revised, I'm a couple years away from having deeply dove into this, but
I have one in front of me. I'm working on my transfer eval today. But yeah,
when you get to promotion ratings, it says an early promote says to
two pay
grades. So if I say that Petty Officer First Class is an early promote, I'm saying she's ready to be a senior chief. Not only does that not make any sense, like, it's just insane, really.
Right.
It's not how the system is set up in practice. Like, when we actually do it, that's not what that means. That just means you're at the top of the heap and you get the most points. So it's like, then you go to the selection board.
Just because you have quotas doesn't mean you should give them.
Right. So then you go to the selection board, and they're like talking about these things as if we are following the manual, like for eval or awards for that matter. And it's just like, yeah, but we're not. And there's all this stuff where we're like reading between the lines and like, what did they mean by that? And it's like, why can't I just write?
They just said what they meant.
You are not ready to be a chief. Next. Like, why can't I just say what's really happening? It's like, I have to write evals. So like, for my bottom P that's like, just doesn't get it, I have to be like, has the potential to develop into an outstanding leader at some point, maybe. And it's like,
capable with full supervision.
Yeah. And I can't even say that part. Like, I got to say this like flowery, positively like aimed phrase that isn't even true. But I'm not allowed to write that they're incompetent. I'm not allowed to write that they have no idea. Like, they're not even operating at the level of a second class petty officer. They're not ready to be a chief.
Because if that was the case, then how are they here? Did you write them up? Are there counseling kits? Have they gone to mass?
Yeah. But I can't write that and without torpedoing their career for like 5 years probably either. So that's what's so gross about it, is like you have to try to do this weird subjective math in your head about like, okay, like, because I had a lot of that. I had a bunch of first class surface sailors when I was an instructor. And so I'm writing evals and looking at their previous evals, they're on CVN, whatever, as an LPO of S2 of 350 sailors and their leadership Jesus. And I'm like, well, why can't they function at the most basic level while leading 25 students? Like, I'm like, okay, maybe. I'm not saying it wasn't true. Maybe they were that person on the CVN, but they're not here. So I'm not writing that eval. But then I have to like weigh in my head, like, but am I going to torpedo their career for 5 years? Like, is it that bad? Because like for me, truth in reporting is like, I'm evaluating you for a 12-month period, as long as, you were there for the whole reporting period.
Right.
But like, I'm evaluating the performance I have to evaluate. I don't care what your last eval says, because that's not what I'm doing. But the way that it's like the unwritten rules, it's like I've had conversations with my CMC about like, well, you can't downgrade her from an EP to an MP. I'm like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Go read the book. I don't even need a reason. Like, yes, I can. And he's just like everybody, there's just tribal knowledge that like once you get an EP, you're just an EP forever until you transfer or promote. Not even a little true. Like,
but people do it, and that's why people believe it, because it happens.
Right. Does it hurt them at the selection board? Yeah, no, it does. Like, it's viewed as a performance drop, because it is. Unless they had a separate, like a different reporting senior, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole bunch of stupid stuff.
Right.
But so yeah, I'm like, I'm not giving this instructor an EP just because there's an EP to give. And I was in the room the year before when the previous SEL was like, he like muted the phone con with all the other SELs at all the learning sites and the CMC. He's like, I think I'm gonna put her in for an EP because there just is one. I think I can win this argument. I'm like, no. I'm like, that sailor is not an early promote, not even close. He's like, yeah, but I mean, it's there. So like, and I'm like, I'm talking to a master chief as a chief, and I'm just like, oh my God, stop it. Like, please don't do this. Please, because then I already knew how the movie was going to end. I knew I was going to be sitting in that chair the next year, having to like wade through the process of like, what do I do with this now? Because she wasn't an early promote last year. She's not going to be an early promote next year, probably. And turns out she wasn't. And then I had to write that eval, debrief that eval, which she wasn't even a little surprised that she went down. Like, I think she was floored that she got an EP the year before.
But what would be worse is if that person had picked up from that EP eval and became 100%. A crappy chief.
Yep.
And was rewarded
which
for substandard perform. Like it does.
Which
it really
happens
does
all the time. And it's because those evals are, like you're saying, they're being rewarded for substandard performance. But for a guy like me at the Chiefs board, they brief you that even if I know better, all I can consider is what's on that piece of paper. So like, if I get a record in front of me and I know that this sailor is not performing at this level, I don't get to use that context. You're actually supposed to boot the record to someone else because there's a conflict there.
Right.
Does that always happen?
Signed it. I mean, how could they, like, that's on them. Right. That's not on you. And, and I understand that. But
it's, if there was real truth in reporting, you'd get a lot better of a product, but there isn't. And so you end up with all these evals that say this person is God's
gift to the Navy, and they're literally just barely showing up on time.
All I'm allowed to do is grade what's in front of me. And so like, it's like, if I know better, it's excruciating, but the vast majority of the time I don't know any better. Right. And so I'm grading this package, and it's like, and we're told like, you're the sailor's advocate. So like, you grade it, you pull out all those things, and then you go in there and you brief them like as their advocate. Now, it doesn't mean you lie, but like, you pull all the great things that they did out. And then you do have to brief, like if there's a PRT failure, I'm not going to ignore that. Like, I'm going to brief that, yes, there was a PRT failure 3 years ago, but they've recovered and haven't had an issue since and are in ACFL now or whatever. Right. Like the classic thing. But
that's why truth in reporting is so important, is because you do take what you get, and ideally have no background knowledge whatsoever. You should be able to trust whoever signed that piece of paper to say that they're a 5.0 EP number one, whatever.
The problem is the background, like the background process that's happening of us. We've just created this thing where it's like, there's what the book says on how you're supposed to do it that would feed into that selection board process, how you're supposed to do it. But like the selection board is the only one functioning like in accordance with. So you're getting, I don't know. I don't know.
Rules.
I don't,
and I say this all the time about so many
I do
things.
not have a great answer for that question. Like, I don't know how it got to the way that it is, but I just know it's been that way the entire time for as long as I can remember. There's been this like, just this understanding that's been passed down as tribal knowledge of like, this is how you write evals. And I'm a dude that like, I want to read the book. I want to know what it actually says, because there's been a ton of times that I've gotten to dunk on people and fix things for sailors when I read the book and they didn't, and they're telling me something that's like just factually inaccurate. It's you're violating policy. It says it right here.
It's one of my favorite phrases is, can you show me where it says that? Because people tend to be eager to prove you wrong. And so instead of me going and being like, no, look, this is the instruction, they're going to be like, well, actually, it's interpreted. Yeah. Right.
I'm now fuck.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. Could you please tell me? Like, I had a whole conversation about uniforms.
I do that, but I already know the answer. Like, I already know what the instruction says. Yeah.
But I want them to bring it and be like, oh shit, I was wrong.
Turns out.
Right. And just, or maybe they'll just forget about it. And
I had a retired,
put it on there.
A retired YN1 that was the admin officer when I was at the A school. And he's a really nice dude, but he was one of those guys that you could tell, like, and I'm not saying it's like why he retired as a YN1, but it probably didn't help. But you could tell everything he ever learned about being a YN1 or being a YN in the Navy was all tribal knowledge, all of it. And he would tell me things all the time that I'm just like, that's not true. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yes, it is. And I've been doing this for 20 years.
When we were doing evals, like he would send me these evals that were all effed up, well, especially like the Chiefs ones. And I forget, I want to say it's the closeout evals for Chiefs, the E6 closeout evals. You select the promotion status of selected. I'm 99% sure
that is correct.
And he put frocked on them all, and I'm like, dude, that's not real. Like, that's not how you do this. And he was like, yeah, it is. No, that's right. And I'm like, no, it's not, dude. Read the eval manual. And he kept arguing with me. So then I started.
Funny story, because he was never a chief, so he would know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he should know how to write evals. But
people should know how to do a lot of things.
There's on Microsoft operating systems, and I think they changed the name of it, but it used to be called the snipping tool. It's like you can just screenshot a part of. So I would just send him little snippets of the eval manual constantly in emails, and just be like, "No, dude, you got to do it this way. Here's the snippet." And he would get so pissed at me because he's like, "You tell me how to do my job. How dare you talk down to me?" I'm like, I'm not talking down to you. I told you that's not how it's done. Yeah. Well, I told him it's not how it's done as nicely and diplomatically as possible. And you kept arguing. Like, why aren't you sending me screenshots of the eval manual telling the dumb cook chief that he's wrong about your area of expertise? Why do I have to be the one that filters your tribal knowledge and says, no, actually, that's not how you write evals, guy who's getting paid to write evals? I'm sort of getting paid to write evals, but you know what I mean? Like, this is not my primary duty.
Right.
This is not my primary duty. This is your primary duty, and you're getting paid a preposterous amount of money to do it as a civilian. So how about open a book? Like, instead of me being the one that has to QA your work, like, you should be getting paid as a seaman right now, because that's the level of performance I'm getting out of you. So don't get mad at me. Get smart. Like, get in a book. Like, you should be teaching me these things, not the other way around. Like, I should come to the admin officer who's a retired admin guy and who has subsequently been doing it for like 8 years as a civilian in this position. You should be teaching me things. That's how this relationship should be working.
I agree. And I feel so strongly about these things. And I'm learning how to
I couldn't tell.
Control my voice and especially my face too.
It's a liability as a first class. It's an asset when you put on anchors. Remember that. Like, shout out to Melissa Hartley if she listens. I think she does. She was one of my A school instructors who we butted heads a little bit. She had a huge mouth. I'm sure she still does. But I always loved her secretly. And I told her when she was transferring, I said in front of the group, like the little like scrum where we were like, she was getting her end of tour. It was just staff, but like she was getting her end of tour and saying bye and stuff. I told her, I'm like, remember that thing that you get told is an attitude problem is going to be a gigantic asset when you enter the mess. And I can't wait to see your name on the list. And as sure as I'm standing here, sitting here right now, like she became a super chief, and it was, I mean, literally and figuratively, like she retired as senior chief, but
nice.
She became an outstanding chief petty officer because they tell you, I've been told I have an attitude problem my entire career. And then all of a sudden I make chief, and I'm a vocal advocate for my sailors. Right. Look at you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So remember that. It's only a liability when you're E6 and below.
Right. And I try to keep it appropriate, but sometimes and not that it's inappropriate, sometimes it's not right audience, things like that. And I'm getting better, but today I actually had a slip. We had a planning board for training. And so we briefed the XO and all this. And then when it's over, we had a couple like follow-ons in the end. And she had asked to talk to me after. So I was kind of hovering.
This was the XO?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I was kind of hovering, waiting for her to finish. And then one of her divos, the lieutenant, was saying something to her, answering for something that was on a slide, and said, "I'm sorry." And I said, "Don't be sorry, be better." And she turned to me and said, "Damn." And I was like,
"Got him."
I'm sorry. I mean, honestly, yeah. I didn't mean it that way. I mean, I meant it. I didn't mean it that way.
Probably sounded harsher than you meant it, for sure.
And this poor guy, he's so nice. He has the best intention. He just checked in like a month ago. And so all the new check-ins go with me for an undetermined amount of time, depending on like their level of what they need to do to get into like the special box. And so regardless of rank, they all stay with me for like I have a classroom and with a desk, and then I also have an office. But and so he's been with me, and he was talking to someone else about something recently, and he was like, we're gapped at chief, and I have this LPO that was just thrust into this chief role, and I just want to help her. And I was like, that's not your job. Yeah. I know you want to help, but you have to let her figure it out. It's not your turn. She was talking about like E5 evals or something. I'm like, it's not your turn. You have to let her do this and give you a product before you jump in ahead of that. Like, he's just nice. He wants to help her, save her, whatever. But
there's a place for him to, is it him, right?
The lieutenant. Yeah. He's a him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a place for him to kind of reach over and help if that's an ability that they have. Right. So like, like they're college educated, maybe they are better with like grammar and spelling and sentence structure. So like, but I mean, that's a Divos filter anyway. Like that's kind of the level at which you're reviewing evals anyway. But then like 100% not their job to like teach you how to be the chief in that role or to like,
take it off her plate. She has to figure out how to do it. Right. Like wait your turn. Then you give your feedback. Then you give your support. And
if you're really struggling that hard, it's like it'd be a chief's job to fix that, not a Divo.
I agree with you,
because God bless him for wanting to help, but it's like you don't know what you're talking about. Like that's it's not going to be helpful. A Divo would write a flowery essay about how much they like you and then send it up, and they'd be like, "What the is this? Like this? I can't send this to a selection board." I'm like,
and I'm sure he's like, more than capable. It's and not going against his ability to write evals.
Yeah, if they have the knowledge and the experience of the system, for sure. Like because you see, I've had a lot of like department heads and XOs that are great at reviewing evals, but that's because they have 15 years of experience.
Right.
So
they see 200 of them every couple months, depending on what season it is. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But I just tried to 100%. Tell him like, but for example, there's just not enough khakis around, or not enough chiefs. There's not enough chiefs around, and chiefs are supposed to train junior officers, and I'm not going to let it go. And I'm going to step in where I have to.
You shouldn't let it go
instead of waiting for someone else to come around.
Because that's the first thing that chiefs try to jettison as a responsibility is training junior officers. And I would argue it's one of their more important. Oh yeah. It's one of their more important jobs. Like I had to go in on a bunch of chiefs and part of it is the way that submarine JOs they get like revolved through Divo positions to get exposure to like all of the different, there's I think MDiv, EDiv, RLDiv, RC. So there's 4 nuclear divisions on a submarine. So they want to like rotate them through those divo jobs. Then there's an AEng, like an assistant engineer position that senior JOs will occupy usually. And then forward to the watertight door, you've got, I mean, I don't even know. There's a bunch of divisions. So there's a ton of divo roles. And they have this tendency to try to rotate them through a lot of them. And JOs are only on a submarine for 30 months or something. It's not that long, 36 months tops, I think. They have shorter tours than enlisted. So it's like they never get to stick around in a division. Not never. They habitually
Rarely.
don't get to stick around in a division long enough, because there's like certain divo roles that are kind of looked at as more important. Like DCA is, it's called damage control assistant, but it's really like you're in charge of A gang, which and DC and some other stuff, but A gang is like conventional mechanics. They own like everything on the boat, damn near. If it has hydraulics or air or like if it's not electricity and it's not, if it's not electricity and it's not nuclear, it's theirs. They own just everything. So it's a really important job. Like, and so there'll be more competent JOs kind of pigeonholed in that job because it has to.
You need it,
right?
Right.
But the poor JOs that get rotated through quite a bit. So I've had just countless chiefs talk about how incompetent their divo is and how they're just useless. They don't do anything right. They can't brief anything. They can't do anything. They're useless. And I'm like,
what are you doing about it?
Yeah. Whose job is it to make that divo competent? Yours, dummy. So why don't you do your job? Like, and I can't tell you how many times I've been in like behind the closed door of the chief's mess and had some chief just moaning about their useless divo. And I'm like, that's a direct reflection of your leadership, guy. So how about do something about it? And it really is. It's like they look at it like, I'm just going to wait it out until I get a competent officer.
They're going to go away soon anyway. The next
revolving door. Yeah, exactly. So it makes it worse. It definitely perpetuates that attitude. And so you see these chiefs, and then here's the best part. A lot of those same chiefs are just moaning about the CO and how terrible the CO is and how the CO never listens to them and how the CO this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, maybe stay with me.
8 years ago, maybe it was this guy that you ignored.
Maybe, I mean, it was more like 18 years ago, but maybe this 18 years ago, this CO was a divo who got told nothing but how incompetent they are by their chief. So maybe that he doesn't trust chiefs because his chief didn't trust him and never put any time or effort into teaching them how to be an effective leader, which is their job. That is a chief's job to teach. And that's why it's arguably it's definitely top 2 of the things that like in importance of the things that chiefs are responsible for doing, because those divos become department heads, become XOs, become commanding officers, become flag officers, become CNOs.
Right.
So it's like, and then, I mean, God, they might even go to the civilian ranks and become like the Secretary of the Navy. Like, so it's so important. And it's like one of the first things they try to jettison because it's so obnoxious and because like a revolving door, they'll get a new one soon anyway. And so they'll just wait for one that's either already been trained up by a competent chief or just happens to be a
less problem. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There's plenty of JOs that are just overachievers. So
man, my concern issue, like one of the things that like I think about all the time is this same concept talking about chiefs are supposed to be training junior officers. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this is we're putting all of this on the chiefs, right? The chiefs are, there was an episode you had where the chief is supposed to be the chief, like period. Okay. I don't disagree with that. What about everybody else? It's not just the chief's job. Like the first classes should be training the second classes.
Right.
And it's no one is developing anybody.
There's a huge, exactly. There's a huge void within the wardroom of officers training officers. Like they do plenty of training on tactical things, on like technical details of like
And hilariously, like a lot of submariners will get a little chuckle out of this, but like most submarine platforms, when you do field day, which I, assume I don't know what you guys do, but like it's cleaning the ship, right? Once a week on a submarine. It's generally, so underway, it would be Saturdays, import, it would be Fridays because it's burger day. It's just a submarine tradition. Is we do field day in the morning and then lunch is burgers and then we go on with our day. During field day is officers training because God forbid they get any dirt under their fingernails. So they got to go hide in the wardroom. And so they do officers training or what on some topic. And who knows what I've never
seen. The topic is how to avoid doing things you don't want to do without getting caught.
If I've seen a training plan for that, I forgot it. But like they do training in that. So once a week, they do training in that way. And then they do a lot of training under instruction watches and training in all of the very like technical expertise type duties and responsibilities of being an officer, primarily like an officer of the deck or an engineering officer of the watch or something to that effect on a submarine, right? They don't do like, there's not a lot of leadership training. There's not a lot of even just management training because like, to a large degree, I think most officers are more like they're more strategic level managers than they are ever leaders of sailors, except when you're looking at that relationship between COs, XOs, and department heads and those junior officers. And I think there's they're missing an opportunity to make them much more high functioning in the role that they have as officers, through like modalities like the officer training and just mentorship in general, because they I'm told, having never experienced it, I'm told by officers that that's what they have a lot more schools that they go to that are mandatory through their pipeline as they ascend through the ranks of but I'm told those schools are largely focused on tactical and strategic level concepts as far as like fighting the ship and operationalizing all these things, so that when they're in the officer of the deck position or they're in a department head or XO position and we're in like an operations brief where we're getting ready to go do a thing, that's the kind of stuff
they understand on. Right.
And they're great at it, but they're largely incompetent at actual leadership. And it's because they don't put a focus on any of it. As far as like, and John Rennie, who was a submarine JO, but it was a long time ago. And it's so a lot of it has probably changed. I don't know how, because I was never an officer. But that pipeline, like he was telling me that they were given a rating on, it was basically technical expertise. I forget what he called it, like I think he said technical rating. But they weren't evaluated on being leaders. Like, and a lot of it, I think, is naval nuclear power doing what naval nuclear power does, where every submarine junior officer that's a line officer is nuclear trained, unless I don't think there's an exception to that. Actually, I don't think there is unless, like, I've had limited duty officers that are, which isn't technically, they're not line officers in the traditional sense. And then we have like, supply officers and so but like sometimes you get warrants and stuff in weird areas like special projects. But yeah, the line officers that are doing the traditional career progression of a naval officer on a submarine are all nuclear trained. So you get this weird like interpretation of what it means to be in that leadership position, because naval nuclear power is the way that it is culturally. So it's like on surface ships, I hope they do better. I don't know. Like, cause like on a carrier, you generally have like an aviator as a CO. So like, I don't know how those communities differ enough to speak intelligently on it, but yeah, there's a lot of missed opportunity for senior officers to mentor junior officers in how to do the thing. Because yeah, I can teach you how to be a leader generally, but I can't teach you how to be a great officer. I don't know how to do that.
Right.
Like I have a very like anecdotal, just based on my interactions and observations.
Right.
I know what an officer does, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's like to stand officer of the deck, dude. I've fucking never done it. I mean, you're behind me the whole time. My dive chair's over here. You're back there. You talk to me and then I do the thing. So it's like,
and I mean,
yeah,
we could argue that kind of officers don't necessarily need to be leaders. Like you said, they need to be
Sure.
managers. They need to be, planning operations. They need to be doing those. They're not leading.
You
If you're talking
could.
about what leading is. That's, if they're not graded on it, like sometimes that happens. And
you
if you
could,
have,
and
I'm not saying
I don't
we
know,
should, but I'm saying,
I don't know if I agree or disagree wholly, but I know I can tell you, I think it's a lot better when they're functional leaders, like, because how could they not? Like, I did that CO suggestion box episode that I don't know if you've gotten that far, but he's a submarine CO that oddly did not have a engineering specific education, because I think he got into the pipeline before it became mandatory ? I'm not 100% sure if it's mandatory, but I think it is, where you have to have like an engineering centric education to be able to get into naval nuclear power as an officer on submarines. I could be completely wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But so he had like some kind of like a music degree, I think. And so he just thought differently. And by virtue of that, everybody, and I know a lot of people that served under him as a CO, and he was the best. The culture was the best. He was amazing. He cared about us. They all relay stories through the lens of how he made them feel, which to me is very telling. And like, even like Jervy Loda, he was the Mertha CO with all the social media presence stuff. I've talked to a bunch of people that served under him, and it's not just a show, which there was a part of me that the skeptic in me was like, why are we posting TikTok like videos on social media? How is that making the command better? And he had a pretty great answer for it on the podcast, where it was like, they were in the middle of the pandemic quarantine stuff, and he wanted to reach his people and make them feel like he cared. And I was like, oh, okay. I would have never imagined that answer myself. It felt ego driven to me, and I was really looking forward to him explaining it. And I'm glad that he did, because that's not what I would have dreamt up. And I wasn't, the COVID stuff wasn't even in my calculus. I was imagining why a CO would be motivated to do this.
I want followers. I want views.
Yeah. It felt like it had to be ego driven.
Right. But it's just easy. It's simple. He
did. A lot of the reason I do the podcast was I want to reach sailors where they are. And at the time, he wanted to reach sailors where they are because he couldn't reach them in any other way. So this was what they came up with. And I mean, it worked. And he was obviously a great CO, because I mean, everybody I've interacted, I mean, they're EXO. So like, I posted the podcast with him and the video and everything. His EXO was in the comments like real quick, just like, love this dude. He's so amazing. It's all true. Mertha was great. Like, just everybody. And then like, I interviewed a BM senior chief that retired from that command before I got Captain Aloda on. And same thing. He's like, dude, I'm telling you, it's real. I know a lot of people want to look behind the curtain and see the emperor has no clothes, but like, no, this was real. And I was just like, awesome. What's funny is like, I'm like one of the few people that like am very willing to believe that it's real, because I experienced it on that special projects platform. Like, not just with the Chiefs mess either. 2 best COs I've ever had in my life, back to back, were on that submarine. One of them retired as a captain, and the other one retired as an admiral, and just great COs. And the EXOs were strong too. Like, it was, and so by virtue of that, and I think the command culture was driven by the Cobb that I'm such a giant fan of, but that CO co-signed everything. He just let him run the ship. He did what a good CO should do. And it's not like he didn't have a hand in it. He was a great leader himself, but he let the Cobb do what he just trusted him so implicitly, because he was so great at what he did, that he was just like, yeah, Cobb, go do you, like, go run the ship. And he did. And he had policies that would be so controversial in this. So like, if you were day after duty and he saw you on the ship past lunch, where's your chief? You know what I mean? Like, you better be at the gym doing PT and going home. Like, he was just like not having it. Right. When we were in the yards, if the shipyard came down and introduced new work after 1500, we told them, no, get out of here.
That's awesome.
Like, because my sailors have to sleep. My sailors have to have quality of life during the shipyard. He was just like, if somebody comes down with a job that wasn't briefed at night work and like it's like new work. Tell them to pack sand.
Clearly, it
like,
can
kick
wait.
rocks,
If it
bro.
was important, they would have brought
clearly
it up
it wasn't
before.
important enough for you to get approved and brief at night work. So get off my submarine.
Yeah,
God, it was fun. Like we were so empowered to just like pack, because I'd be the duty chief, so I'm his representative. So they'd come down at 1800 with new work, and I'd be like, I have a printout of night work. I have a printout of what you're. Right. It's not on here. So go tell your whatever supervisor hat person at the yard, like tell him no. Tell him the duty chief said no, and if he's got a problem with that, come on down. I'll be happy to kick him off my submarine too.
That's what I meant more about. Not that the officers shouldn't be leaders, but in my perfect world, right? That the chiefs would, and chiefs, senior chiefs, master chiefs would be the ones leading all the work, the operations, the efforts, and the officers would be empowering them to do that. Right. And that they can be great at it, and they can have their own influence. And I'm not saying just let them run wild like teenagers or something.
It happens. So it's like you can't just blindly trust the Chiefs because it'll go off the rails at some point.
I agree. And
I'm not drinking beer at lunch. Like you can't. No.
And that's not what I'm saying. I just ideally in a perfect world that you wouldn't need the officers to be the ones leading every effort every day, because everyone is so capable to do it that they're focused on big picture. They're making future plans that we're allowed to just, do our job, and that would be great. And
that's how, in a perfect world, that's how it should function. Is the officers are the strategic level planning, big picture, long-term picture, that kind of stuff. And then it kind of tears down in an upside down pyramid of like, because I used to, the example I use to make it a little more digestible is like, so my supply officer on a submarine, by virtue of them being super junior is why I would encounter this problem a lot as well. They show up as brand new baby ensigns generally, and they're my divo and my department head. And on a submarine, department heads are at least an 03, if not an 04. So you get this really warped power dynamic. They don't even know how to be a JO on a submarine, let alone a divo.
Probably haven't worn every uniform because they haven't been in for every season.
Right. And God bless my supply officers, but some of them, I mean, it was like having an E3 in khakis. It was absurd. But they were good people that wanted to do well. I needed to teach them how to do their job. But there were times where my supply officer would continually be told by the XO, CO, other department heads, you're a department head. I expect you to behave like a department head. I expect you to run your department. So then they would ham-handedly try to start doing things within the department without talking to the chiefs that are running the department. Like, I'm the department chief and I'm a division chief. So I created this really bright red line of, you don't tell my people what to do. You tell me what to do. That's how this relationship works. You don't ever give direct tasking to my people unless it's an immediate like safety thing. Like you see something unsafe, you shut it down immediately, or underway limiting thing, and you need somebody to go fetch this part. Okay, we'll talk about it after. But there were times where she would give tasking to my people, and it was like, I already gave tasking to my people, and now she just didn't know about it. And when she gave tasking, they're like, well, she wins. I salute her, not senior. And so they would go off and do and then I'd show back up from whatever meeting or thing I was doing and be like, where the hell is so-and-so? And they're like, oh, Chop sent them here. I'm like, what? And then I'd go find we call our supply officer Chop on a submarine. I don't know why, but here we are. So I would go find her and be like, what the f- are you doing? And she'd be like, but I needed this thing to be done. So, and I'm like, no. Like, they don't work for you. They work for me. I work for you.
That's
if
what I mean.
Need a thing done. You tell me. I go get it done. I will task them accordingly and make it happen. But I'm making 27 other things happen right now, and you just threw a hand grenade into that. And I've got things that are limited by crane support and trucks arriving and all this other stuff. Like, you can't do that. You're sabotaging the whole thing.
And you're flailing, and you're right, is making everyone else lose it.
You're right in that it's not their job to do that. And so it's like, it's like but that's how it needs to function though, is like, it's not like she doesn't have an input, but that input goes through me because that's how the hierarchy is structured.
Right. And that's
the
what
only
I mean.
way that it works. Yeah. The only way that it
Everyone
works
has
is
their own roles and responsibilities.
Right.
And I wish people knew what those were too. And that I had to.
Well, if some chief taught them better how to be it. Yeah. Like, and I worked on it, and she came around because of course she did. She was extremely intelligent. She wanted to do well. She just, immature and didn't know what to do. But she figured it out because I taught her and I held her accountable.
Thank goodness. Right.
Yeah. Right. So she became extremely high functioning. She left that submarine as a lieutenant and was like killing the game. Like, she's amazing. So but yeah, it gets worse.
I don't even remember what the initial question was.
Whatever. Who cares? We're going to pivot anyway. Tell me about, and we probably addressed some of it already, but tell me about these articles that you want to write. Like, what are some of the topics, and we can work through some of those topics.
So I have a few. One was accuracy in reporting. That was one that or truth in reporting that I didn't want to talk about. And how when you fail to do that, the effects that it has in long term. And I think I put it into my email to you. Maybe not, but I have these conversations with people all the time. I seek this out all the time. But the thing that concerns me every day is the future of the Navy. Like, that's what I care about, because there's all these issues that are wrong now.
Yeah,
that's true. And we can work on them. We can react, and we can do what we can do. But I'm trying to think of what's happening right now and how that's going to affect 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And the people that join or don't join.
Yeah.
And the people that are leading those people 20 years from now, when I'm not involved, and what that looks like for our future. And that terrifies me. So like, these are the things that I worry about. So one of them is accuracy in reporting and how that can kind of get you down away. One, and this is just a separate idea, not necessarily how I want to, or what I want to address, but the thing I want to talk about as an option is potentially linking advancement to OBLISERV. Because there are a lot of people who are like, there are people who are on the fence about staying in. And for example, I know some first classes who didn't pick up chief, and they're like, I'm just going to go home. It's like, well, if that's your driving factor, then we don't want you, or I don't want you anyway. So if you've already committed, now you're for sure more, I don't want to say more eligible, but I've seen it often, especially in the lower ranks, that they promote these people and they give them a quota, and then we had someone take the chief's exam today who was on Skillbridge and was made to come in to take the exam.
I think, like, I would agree up to the point of, like, I think that person, because like when you put your fleet reserve in, right? Like, if I hadn't made Master Chief when I did, I would have never made it, because I would have had approved fleet reserve. And so you get removed from consideration, because of course you do.
Well, for E6s, you only get removed if you're going to fleet reserve for higher tenure. And now that higher tenure is 22. So if you had put in fleet reserve for 20 years, you can still take the test. You can still be board eligible. And if you make it, you can
change
take
your
that
mind or something. Okay.
Right. Because because you're eligible to do more time.
Which makes sense for the higher tenure folks. So if you're approaching higher tenure but making chief,
I meant that vice versa.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Because if you're already screwed on higher tenure, unless you have a waiver, it's a moot point. But
that's what I meant.
So
if it would save you from higher tenure, then you'll get the view. But this person today was like 6-7 years in the Navy,
definitely not staying in. So they have them, and is Seaway still real?
Kind of.
Is it still a thing you have to? Because I know at one point, if they have this mechanism for you to voluntarily return your quota, right? I was a command career counselor. Right. I was a command career counselor back when it was PTS, and then it transitioned to Seaway. So that time frame.
Right.
But they have that where they're like, you should, if you plan to get out, like that person clearly does, you should return your quota, not just because it's a quota, so we can then give it to someone that plans to stick around, but it also provides that signal of like, don't promote me, I'm leaving.
Right. And
theoretically,
and also,
but then
for
people
other
didn't
things,
do that.
Well, yeah, like, because they changed their mind.
because they changed their mind. And so at career counseling school and every training I did and everything else, it was err on the side of caution and just automatically get them a quota, which just like truth in reporting, convolutes the whole, it just breaks the system.
And the big effect that has on more than just that person, because so for example, as a CTI,
somebody that wants to stay in can't get a quota if I've already got a quota for this guy that's going to separate.
Well, not even that. It gives us gapped billets.
Yeah.
So if you have a C-way quota, you get approved, you get given orders, and then you wait and then decide, I refuse to obla-serve. Now they have to cancel your orders and re-advertise them. And we've been planning that we're going to have a new person coming here in 2 months. And now it's going to be another 10 before
even
we have
better.
someone.
I've had stuff happen where they let a kid. So when I was at the A school, they let a kid execute orders to go to submarine school and then go to a submarine. And he only had 6 months left on his contract, and then he just separated. And it was like, what did we even do this for?
Thousands of dollars did they spend on his government, on his like household goods, like those kind of things?
I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff at the A school. Like if my admin officer throws a flag up of like, hey, which he didn't, shockingly, of the detailer should have too. It's like, you shouldn't even have been cut orders. And if you were cut order, well, I guess you could cut them orders, but you shouldn't let them execute those orders if they have an obla-serve for them. But that's not I don't do that stuff. I put them on a bus with a plane ticket that my admin officer bought, and they're on their way. And
retired one.
The cob of that submarine was a buddy of mine, and he called me flipping out. And I'm
why did you give me this person?
I'm like, I don't look at that. That's not my job, man. My job is to put heads through the school. Like I put sailors through, graduate them, send them on their way. This kid was a reclass. Like he was like a CB or something that got PTS quota chain or whatever, force converted. That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
So he got force converted, and they sent him to A school, they sent him to sub school, they sent him to submarine, all without ever making him obla-serve. And so he's just like, yeah, I don't think I want to stay in anymore, and just bounced. And he was a great kid. He would have been great on the boat. I think he would have went on to do great things, but he just, which is
never even got there.
Prerogative. Like he didn't know any of this going in. He just was thinking to himself, yeah, I'll go try it. And if I don't like it, I'll separate. Yeah. That's what he did.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
but for us, we are making,
and it put a big gap in there.
Yeah. When we're having people make these decisions way in advance. Yeah. Because we have 6-year orders, and most schools, it depends on what your rating is, goes from, 6 months to 2 years potentially of school. So now then you get your orders. Me personally, I had school for 6 months, and I had, I want to say 23 months left on my contract, because you have to apply for Seaway at PRD and EAOS. I'm still years out, and I'm like, well, I don't even need a quota, because I could get orders if I wanted without having to obla-serve. I can execute, or I had 25 months. You can execute orders with 24 months. So why would I even apply? And I mean, it's a huge problem, and you're asking 19-year-olds to make a decision for 4 years from now.
That far in the future? Yeah. And I don't know what I'm having for lunch, dude. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like the process is not great, and it has a long-term effects. So something about linking advancement to obla-serve, or maybe you don't get it if you're for sure getting out, or
that would be a really hard thing to accomplish well, I think. But
I'm not saying we should, but I just want to explore it and research it more, and what it would do if we had something in place.
Yeah. Okay.
And then another topic that this may be a sensitive topic to some upper level leadership
listeners.
But this is it's a term that I only heard recently in the last 2 years. I don't know if it's commonly used elsewhere, but I've heard it plenty lately, and it's called geriatric leadership, which has nothing to do with your age. It's not about being old. It is not a concern about anyone's age at all. But it's the concern of how far removed upper level leadership is from the real people, particularly for, and I can't speak for any other community or rating, but for my community, the intelligence community, technology is advancing faster than we can even comprehend.
I can barely get cameras to work for my podcast.
Right. And we have, especially, and I don't know the exact details, but the CTN rating has not been around that long. And for the most part, maybe not most, I'm speaking out of air here, but there are many, many Master Chiefs that make up the group of the CT gods that weren't even the ones doing the job on the keyboard before they were converted, because they were force converted from CTA or CTO or whatever other options.
Because they created CTN.
Yeah, and they needed leadership for these CTNs. And I understand that. You can't we have this new cyber rating that's going to come up. You're not starting with just E1s and just brand new people. You have to have someone get them along the way. So I understand why that happens, but you have these individuals making decisions and affecting the rating that haven't done the job in so long they may not understand it. And then also we talked about earlier things like the way upper fleet master chiefs, things like that. When was the last time that they spoke to someone and their real problems in a informal way of, if you at a regular command of just normal sailors, you go to the smoke pit and you have sailors talking about their pay issues, their personal issues. They're surrounded by captains and master chiefs who do not have these same problems we do.
I think I don't not think it's a problem, but I think that I might have a different solution than you envisioned. So I'm an advocate of the idea that you should have to make a decision around the senior, so around your entry into senior NCO status, which for us is E7. Either you're going to be a technical expert or you're going to be a leader, the end. Like where you go the command route, where like in other services, you're a first sergeant instead of being just like a sergeant first class or a master sergeant or whatever. And you have to pick, like you have to say, well, I'm going to go this route or I'm going to go that route. And I don't know if it's explicit in every service, but like I know for sure the Marine Corps does it, where it's like you're going to promote if you promote the technical expert route, you're going to be a master gunnery sergeant. If you are promoting the leadership route, you're a command sergeant major, and you're doing like the CMC thing, right?
Right.
So I think that I don't know that because if you go the technical route, like I for sure think there's value in having like a salty old whatever, like me, like as a CS, like having a salty old CS in charge of certain things. But there's a point at which I think you largely pivot from being, no matter which path you would take, you'd largely pivot from being a technical expert to being a leader or a manager of some form, right? Or a combination of both. But what I think would really help with this a lot is just deleting higher tenure as a concept. Like the whole up or out idea as being valuable in any way doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And the reason why is there are people that are meant to be just a technician. And I'm not saying just a technician as if that's a bad thing. I'm saying there are people
solid
that
E5 technical expert SME, like everyone knows you can go to them.
And you're going to be better at that and happier doing that than anything else. And the guy that I like to use, he's my favorite example. He's this giant human being that was a nuke mechanic on my last submarine. And everybody called him Biff. And if anybody that served with me is listening, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Just this giant, jolly human. He's like a character from like a movie or something. He's that kind of a guy where he's just so unique and hilarious. He's a great dude. That all that man wanted to do was turn a wrench. That's it. Like he was cool with teaching other wrench turners how to be good at turning wrenches, but he was never happier than when he had a piece of gear tore apart and he's debloused and he's elbow deep in this machine turning a wrench. And they kept trying to force him by virtue of the up or out ideology. Because I think it's absurd and illogical, so that's why I call it that.
Right. But you need to sell cupcakes, and you need to go do this.
The nuclear community has very explicit wickets, and they don't really care about stuff like that much. Nice. So he needed to be an LPO at sea, and he needed to qualify engineering watch supervisor, and he was just like, no, I don't want to be a chief. And they put him in the LPO position because he was the most capable dude, and the other guy that was doing it was he was in some trouble. He was under investigation for some crap and got taken off the boat. But this guy, he wasn't a bad LPO, but he wasn't good at the like administrative, managerial leadership things. He was really great at training and mentoring technicians, though, like at mechanics. And so it's like, why, if he's happier, he's more knowledgeable and experienced, and he can create a whole new generation of just like that kid should have been a permanent A school instructor. Like he was so passionate about turning wrenches, like let him do that. And he's best serving not just his own, I don't know, like sense of meaning and purpose and drive to continue in the organization, but like he's best serving the organization. Like I'm getting the most value I can possibly get out of this kid because of how he's wired, by letting him be just a brilliant senior mechanic and teach all my junior mechanics how to be a really good senior mechanic. And it's like I think the ineffective leadership you find in those positions is more by virtue of the up or out concept than it is by virtue of our like inability to put the right leaders in the right position. Well, no, it is not being able to put the right leaders in the right positions, but it's like you gotta differentiate between, okay, who's going to be the leadership management function and who's going to be the technical function, and then let those people do that thing. And whether or not they like we promote them to higher pay grades, I think is largely irrelevant. I'm okay with the high level technical expert not being a chief or being something else, and not being like being some kind of technical specialist rank where they're, because I want them to get paid more money. I want them to have potential
be rewarded
to advance
for their
and be
solid
rewarded.
Work.
Right. Be rewarded for their extremely valuable work and valuable knowledge and experience. And then just put them in those roles where that's what they do. This is what I do. I'm in charge, but you're still at some type of an equivalent level of rank, but on the technical expertise side. So I can just go, hey, go get me my senior specialist,
right,
or whatever we want to call it. And they're going to be the smart kid that, cause then what you also don't run into, if I'm doing the, largely doing all the administrative leadership and managerial functions, I could promote a hyper comp, so let's say, especially with technology, right, within the CT rating, I could promote a kid 2 years in if they come in with a bunch of outside experience and knowledge and licensure and certifications or whatever the hell you guys do, and they're hyper competent and they have a bunch of relevant civilian experience, and then they demonstrate through whatever metrics we decide to establish that they are the most experienced, intelligent, knowledgeable, whatever technician or wizard of computer things that you guys do. Like
that's exactly
they demonstrate
what it is,
themselves
honestly.
to be, just wizardry, to be that person, then they could promote extremely fast with no real negative consequences. Like you could have a 3-year senior specialist or whatever. I'm like, I should come up with a better term, but like the person we're going to put in that place where geriatric leadership becomes a problem, instead of having a crusty old master chief do it, why don't I have a hyper competent technician do it? Because then what you can also get around, which will be a fun addition, is I can recruit and retain hyper competent people in the career field that they can just get out and cash Willy Wonka's golden ticket by throwing money at them hand over fist via whatever mechanism I choose, because it's so hyper specialized that I can justify handing them $100,000 bonus every year.
Oh, and we do.
Right. I can justify, but I'm not handing an E5 that is going through the same pipeline as leaders that check, because when you hand a nuclear trained, because I can already differentiate, when you hand a nuclear trained person $100K, okay, I don't want to be a nuke, because I know enough about what that means to know that like it ain't worth that check to me. So if you're going to go through that pain, fuck, knock yourself out. Yeah. I hope you get all the money.
Yeah, and I told you my brother was a nuke. He got an $85,000 star bonus, no tax, and was like, bye.
And in order to retain those people, because my best friend in this world is Well, I mean, there's a few, so don't feel slighted if you're listening. But like, he was a nuke mechanic that ran for the freaking hills after our first boat and has made money hand over fist working at civilian power plants. And now he works at a civilian, but it's like a Department of Energy run. I don't want to be
Contracting gig or
hyper-specific,
something.
but like, no, it's a power plant of sorts. Okay. That now he works for the government again, but he's just getting paid.
Nice job, easy hours in the air conditioning. Yeah.
Getting paid way more than he ever would have in the Navy doing that thing. So if they decided we're going to make these hyper specialist technical expert people more highly paid as a result of that knowledge and experience, I feel like it'd be a way easier sell, because I'm not like throwing that money at just any, like a geriatric chief that doesn't even know what they're doing. Right. But we're saying that they're the technical expert. So I got to throw money at them. Like, I had an EDMC that was a nuke electrician that I had to go through the process of doing this paperwork to get him this like senior supervisory bonus. They made up a program to retain these people. It was effectively they made a program that was a waiver for him to get an SRB to stay in, even though he was a master chief already. And so like, but him doing that job, like, okay, cut this man a check immediately. Right. Like, I didn't have any salt about doing that.
I know that there are some processes in place specifically for some of the CT ratings. So like, we have a kind of specific program to make cyber warrant ones. So you can be an E5 and go to the warrant one. So they're getting the pay bump and things like that.
There's ham-handed efforts out there, but it's like you said, there's a focus group full of detached geriatric khakis that don't know what the hell.
And I don't want to say that they're detached. I think they care. They're just removed.
Yeah, I'm sure they care.
They're not. They haven't been out there, and even they're leading and making decisions and forcing me. Hey, you need.
That's
to do
what
this.
I mean by
it's
detached.
Right.
They're just they don't know. They're and a lot of times they don't know what they don't know. You know what I mean? Like they don't have an awareness that they're as detached as they are. So,
but how do you identify that? And that came up today in
leadership development and education.
Right. Why do we not have? Why do chiefs not test for senior chief and master chief? Why is there no more exam?
I don't know.
Why have they earned their technical expertise?
Well, the problem is we're still intermingling technical expertise and the leadership and management aspect of it. And I don't think you can make a convincing argument that any of us are technical experts anymore. Like, I was so far detached from practical application of my career field that like there were people that could do my job better than me at the point that I was a master chief. Do I know what right? Do I know what right looks like? Yeah. Could I actually do it with my hands? That's a different conversation.
And that's okay, I think. As long as you know what right looks like. Even if you can't do it, you need to make sure they can do it.
Right. But I had to work really hard to maintain a level of competence where I could do that. Like, I was going out and doing inspections on submarines where I was measuring like what right looks like. And for me to be able to evaluate that when I'm not in it constantly, I had to be in books all the time and stay really up on like, what is the current policy in our career field? What does right currently look like? Right. But
that's not a requirement. You did that because you wanted to.
Right. But it's arguably a requirement, because how can I competently evaluate them otherwise? But we convolute, like we intermingle technical expertise and institutional expertise and leadership competence to a point that I have to do all three of those things at the highest level now for me to be a master chief in rate, which is what I was doing. But, well, you're a master chief, so you should be able to do these other things too. They kept trying to make me the staff senior enlisted leader at a flag command. And I'm like, I travel constantly it didn't make any sense, but I'm a master chief, so I should be able to do it. And it's like, you're right, kind of, only because the system that we're currently employing is broken. And so like,
And you have to work with what you have, and you're being told to go in all these directions without any clear priority of that. But
that's such a problem that if you pulled it apart and executed it in whatever way we dreamt up to separate the technical expertise from the institutional expertise and leadership and management and all those things, I think that you'd have a much better end product for the people that.
Yes. For us, I know they're working on it. So as a CTI, I have to take a test every year that is how good I know my language. Just the language in a foreign language.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Right? Got to make sure I can still do my job. And I get paid extra money based on how well I do my job. And the CTNs, they want that, which I think they deserve. But with it, but the language has been there forever and, thousands of years, and it doesn't change all that much. But technology does. And if you were to make a test, you would have to keep it updated every week.
I mean, I would argue the better mechanism would just be keep certifications current. Like, because all of those computer dork things, like, and I'm not saying you're dorks by definition. I don't understand it. So I apply terms like that to it. It's wizardry, whatever you want.
It's okay.
I don't want anybody to feel attacked.
But do you know how hard it is to get qualification standards updated that are controlled by Big Navy?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Don't let Big Navy control it. Just say like there are civilian certifications and licenses and whatever that if you attain this level and you because not only are you attaining an appropriate level for whatever point you're at positionally in rank and whatever wise, but you also, like, I know all those have like continuing education requirements and recertification requirements and all those things. So it's like, just do that. Go get Cisco certified or whatever the hell it is that's applicable and maintain it. And the Navy will pay for it. We got Navy Cool for that and whatever other mechanism. But why do I have to maintain any kind of knowledge requirements and qualification requirements and anything? Like, we're doing a thing that is already done in the real world. So just do that. And that's probably on their enlisted career path anyway.
It is.
As like a nice to have that'll help you make chief or whatever, or it's a literal thing that'll help you make chief.
Right.
And whenever they expire, whether they decide to separate early or they get to the end, very, very all the way to the end of the road and retire, all of those things are relevant to their civilian employment. So why would we even do anything? Why would we even have our own mechanism?
And we don't necessarily have to make our own test, but if we have a threshold of this level, then you get paid more money. Yeah, that would be a way to retain people. And like you said about the
Cisco certification,
you don't have
or
to
whatever at the appropriate level.
Right. You're not making your money because you're a chief. You're making your money because you're the expert with all these credentials.
Right.
That would be cool.
And the credentials are going to get you paid more in the civilian world. So I don't have to sell why you're getting paid more in the military.
Right.
Of course you're getting paid more because you're certified this thing that they're not. Right. And so it's really easy to point at this obvious, I got this quantitative value here. This is why they're getting paid more than you. If you want to get paid this much, cross rate to CT and get certified, clown.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that you could do it in almost every career field, I would think, even though I don't think everybody should get paid more, because I couldn't have separated as a culinary specialist with a fancy culinary degree. And even with the highest levels, it's not the absolute highest level, because if I was a certified master chef, then the opposite would be true. I could get out and get a high paying job, but getting certified as a master chef is like becoming a Tibetan monk. It's like a whole different thing. But a certified executive chef, even if I got that certification, I'm going to get out and start at $40,000 a year. The civilian culinary industry values experience, the resume that you built and got this diversity of experience far more than they care if I have a culinary degree or any certification, unless I was a certified master chef. That's different. But even then, it's it's going to play a role because when you go try to get a job as a civilian chef in the real civilian culinary industry, I'm not talking about Applebee's. I'm talking about real high end restaurants where you could conceivably get paid large amounts of money. You have to audition.
Right.
You don't just put a resume in. You have to go in and interview, and then they do a practical. They're going to say, make ossobuco. Here's all the stuff. And they're going to evaluate everything about how you're doing it. Your sanitation. And that's how the civilian culinary certification tests are too. You have to do things. Like they're going to have, there's one, I think it's an executive chef exam where you have to like break down a chicken, and then like they want to see how accurately do you do that? How much waste is there? What are your sanitation practices like? How good is the finished product of whatever you make out of that? Do you utilize all the ingredients? Because penny pinch, like you're optimizing profit when you're like decreasing the amount of waste that you have. So you want to use every single piece of that food to make whatever you're going to make, and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, yeah, it's not real. And you could like, and it does happen where like it's like one of those nice to have certifications that can help you get promoted if you're a certified executive chef, but it's not a huge deal. Like LPOT is a way bigger deal. Like,
Yeah.
So it's like, it kind of exists, but you couldn't do the same thing. And because I can't get out of the military whenever I want as a certified executive chef with only my military experience, and even I got a Gucci culinary degree. It's not a regular one. It's like top 2 schools in the country.
Nice.
And it's like, but it is nice, but it's not going to get me a high paying job.
Right.
I could have a bachelor's degree from that university and it wouldn't get me a high paying job
I got one of those recently.
culinary industry. So I can't get out. So I can't get out and get a high paying job with those credentials. So they don't matter the same way. And the Navy shouldn't have to pay me more if the civilian industry isn't going to pay me.
Right.
But to retain those people or
turn those into
people.
other things too. About it's nice to have a nice fancy resume and have things look good on paper, but if you can't do your job,
right, exactly,
and that going on evals, awards, things like that, yeah, you have all these pretty pieces of paper that go to a board, and no one has ever met you, particularly in the intelligence community where these people can't hold an intelligent conversation or make eye contact with people or even say, hey, how are you today? And you think that person's going to be a good chief when they have one sailor whose wife left them and one sailor who's got dead up to their eyeballs. Like,
I mean, so when we loop back to the beginning and we talk about leadership development and education being the most important thing in my analysis, it's like, if we did that, like, so let's say like I'm emperor for a day and I wave my magic wand and like all of the things with the leadership development and education curriculum process, whatever, is fixed. And then you wait a generation, right? Or if I could wave the magic wand, it just fixes everything, like all the chiefs are all of a sudden competent leaders. So it's like what you would find is a large percentage of those people wouldn't have those problems anymore. So then, because a lot of times when we talk about this topic, people like to think that I have some misguided vision of creating just this organization of hyper competent leaders. Not even a little bit. Like, that's not what I would love for that to happen. That's the dream.
But that's like step one.
What step one is, I want to increase leadership competence in the Navy across the board at all levels by 10%. Do you know what that would do? Do you know how much that would fix?
How do you measure
just a 10% increase? Yeah. How do you say that again?
How do you measure it? What is 10%?
You don't. You can't. I'm just. It's the way that I'm articulating it. I don't expect all of these chiefs to all of a sudden become hyper competent, transformative leaders that are Jervialoda or like some of my favorite like Facebook, like Jay Bell and Bill Houlihan as CMCs. They're these guys that are pretty active on social media that to me, like the perception is they're hyper competent, like very good CMCs. But I don't expect every single person to be able to do that. But I think that most people can be trained to be competent leaders. Like, I can get you to a C-. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can get most people, if they have the desire to do well in that position, like if they really want to be in that position, unlike that mechanic I described earlier, like if they want to be a chief and be in a leadership position to take care of sailors, if that desire really genuinely exists and they're not just conforming to the up or out construct, I can make a functional leader out of that person that knows how to competently care for their people, like their sailors. Like, it's not, and they'll never be a number one EP chief. I don't need them to be that, right? I just need you to
because
be.
It's not about them
At that standard. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I need you to be at the standard, meeting a standard that we create that says this is what a competent chief looks like. And you don't need to be a high performing, overachieving chief. I just need you to be operationally like functional. Like I just based on a robust leadership development and curriculum and a set of like a set of principles that makes any kind of sense. Like I harp on the CPO creed quite a bit because we've decided as an organization to align a lot of our existing training with just gibberish. Like
it
there
means
are parts,
nothing.
there are
It's
parts
cool.
of it
gives
that
you good feel good,
sound nice,
but it
right?
doesn't tell you anything.
But there's parts about it that sound nice and give you the warm fuzzies. There's parts of it that are ridiculous and shouldn't be in there and are honestly embarrassing. But when you look at the mission, vision, and guiding principles, that's a different thing. That's a much better metric. And to the point that, thank God, it's used to actually literally evaluate chiefs. It's what the chief eval is. But like that's
if there's
not
accuracy in reporting.
Well, that too. That's a totally different topic. I'm just talking
Right.
about
No,
like
I
if I say to the MCPON, what is a chief petty officer? Like, explain to me what a chief is.
Someone who
How do
aligns
you
with
do
this, right?
How do you
Right.
do that? Like I would bet you money that they can't explain it. They can explain to you what they would like a chief to be. They can explain to you like this ideal that we strive for, but it's not what chiefs
There's
at
no
large,
standard
Gen Pop. Yeah, Gen Pop, not that thing, not even
Right.
close. And so like if we're missing the mark by such a egregious measure, and we're consciously deciding to align our woefully inadequate training that does exist with just word salad on a plaque, like it doesn't, then of course we're going to be egregiously missing the mark. And so what I have such a hard time with is like if we could just align it correctly, and I'm fine. Like, could we do better than the mission, vision, and guiding principles? I don't know. Maybe. I'd have to really dig into it. But I think they're a pretty good starting point. And so if we realigned everything with that in mind and constantly strove for that and then diverge technical expertise at some point, which I think chief petty officer is a pretty good place, we said, hey, you're either going to be a technical expert or you're going to be a leader, an enlisted leader, right? And I think that the technical expertise thing, you could make up a new thing. You could realign warrant officers to be that. There's a bunch of ways you could do it, but
absolutely possible. We borderline do
I
that
think
as
it's
CTIs.
Yeah.
I
think it's very, very possible.
We're broken up by language community. And once you make E9, you're taken out completely of a group,
right,
and you're in your own group. And they don't have to meet the same like
silly
technical requirements. It's for like competition and stuff like that.
Unless you're going to be a CMC.
Quota. But
I guess.
But it kind of does that. Like I have to take a DLPT for my language every year. They don't have to do that because they're focused on being master chiefs instead of sitting with headphones on.
But then who do I, and when I say I mean the CT community, like, so pretend I'm like a manifestation, I guess.
Right.
Who do I go to for that level of technical expertise type guidance? And I don't mean like I'm consulting a human tech manual. I mean, like when we're steering the ship that is like the CTN rating, who do I go to if you're effectively not a CTN anymore or a CTI or whatever flavor we're talking about?
Ideally, one of two people. One, it should be your first class, period. They should have that technical expertise still, in my opinion. In my community.
Again, like tech manual technical expertise, I would agree, but like because you got to think there is an institutional, like strategic level vision that they're just not going to have by no fault of their own, because they like, okay, but I would say if you I'm reacting to what a first class is right now, not what it could be. So that's what I mean. Like, I feel like we would need to invent a different thing, and a revision of current metrics. Like, I don't think that would be good enough, because it, like, even though it's effectively going to be a rebranding, I think that rebranding is necessary. It's like if we came up with an idea of like, have you ever seen any of the, like the Mallrats movies or like any Kevin Smith movies?
Yes.
I'm a giant Kevin Smith fan. Okay,
I'm a big
so
James
you're gonna
Bob fan. But
I can't make the reference, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. Is like, hey, we're gonna reclaim the term shipmate. We're taking it back, right? We're gonna make it great again. Like we're gonna take that word and we're gonna turn it into a term of endearment from the Chiefs. It's like it's never gonna work.
That endeavor
It's
started
never
over 10 years ago, and I still
never
cringe.
Gonna work.
Like
it's right, exactly. It's never gonna work because of course it's not gonna work. You're not going to rehab that into being anything useful. Because even
it has
I
to be
like
something new.
When I meant it as a term of endearment, I always kind of slyly grinned when I said it, which I didn't use it a lot because I understand. Like, so I'd kind of joke around. But I use the word with the understanding of the connotations that it has when you're using it on junior sailors, right?
Right.
So I employed it in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way on purpose. But it's like, I think you would need the rebranding because for that exact reason, like in the very much the same way that you're never going to ever reclaim the term shipmate. You're also you're gonna run into a lot of issues by virtue of the fact that we're still calling them first classes and everybody has this really ingrained idea, right or wrong, and wildly varying, I'm sure, of what a first class is. So I think you would just need to rebrand it, even though functionally it's going to be very similar in a lot of ways, to open up this whole new like frontier for that person that traditionally in the old mechanism would have just been what we understand to be a first class petty officer, to be this totally different thing. Because then it's like, because then I can just make it up. I can just decide this is what this technical specialist is going to be like, or like you could call it like a technical supervisor or something to that effect, or just make up some other ridiculous nautical based term.
We could just be funny and call them tech sergeants and just be weird.
That'd be funny. Or tech. I'm trying to think of like a petty officer term, like a not a tech petty officer or a
techie officer.
I'll come up with a meme thing later, but
yeah,
it's like I can just completely start from scratch. It's a blank canvas for us to decide what's going to best serve the organization and what's going to best serve the progression of all these people into the hierarchy of this new alignment and make it all work right. And it's like, but I don't have to fight against the misconception people have of, oh, well, this first classes are this now. It's like, no, they're not. They're this other thing. So you don't have to breed that out of the system where it's like, okay, it's a new thing now, but it's going to take 20 years for that to really sink in. Right.
I mean, I think there needs to be a change in what we expect and do as first classes coming from first class, but because I'm in a weird position that I've been filling this chief role for quite some time for like 95% of things, right? So I go to khaki call, I get the emails, I do the things, I advocate, but I'm not allowed to go to QRBs or I've gone to XOI before in their chain of command. Like there's certain levels of things. And so I'm always seeking out like, why, what's the difference? What are you hiding or why not? Why aren't you teaching me? I think the first class should be straddling the line of when the time comes, it's I don't want to say easy, but a much less painful transition, but they're still capable and able to do all of those things. Like they should be both ways.
The dirty little secret is like, there is no real reason why you couldn't be in most of those situations. The exceptions I would say is like any time where, so like, let's say you have like a first class that's effectively a peer, even though you're filling a chief's role and they were going to DRB. Like you could make an argument for you being there, but you could also make an argument for your not being there, because what if, granted, if they're at DRB, this is probably not going to happen, but like, what if they made chief before you? And then now you were at their DRB, it creates a weird dynamic. But even that is like, that's a pretty flimsy argument for you not being present in a lot of these situations. And like,
I agree. And you could be present and not speak. You could just observe. You could have a learning opportunity before 100%. You're in the seat.
There are messes that do that. Like there are messes, like if we're doing a DRB on an E3, there are messes like if you're a board eligible first class, sit there and don't talk. and observe, because
That
I
would be
want you
great.
to see this, and I want you to learn what this is, why we do it, what really happens behind the door, not what you see on Reddit, which also happens behind doors at bad commands and messes. I'm not denying that some of that is true, but yeah, there are places that do that, and it is really productive, but they wait for the right circumstances, because again, if I'm DRB in a board eligible first class, probably not the venue for you to be in there. Probably it does. But if I'm saying, hey, CTI1, you're the acting chief, I'm going to treat you like you're a chief 99% of the time. So if I'm DRBing a first class that is a direct report to you, you're going to be in the room. You're not going to say anything unless I directly address you, but you're going to be in the room 100%, because you're filling that chief's role. So you don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to say you're going to fill this chief's role, have this chief's responsibility, not get the pay, and then I'm going to exclude you from these events where
training evolutions that are gonna come up eventually.
If you're filling that chief's role, and there's a chief role at a DRB for that person, it's like, how can I exclude you? It doesn't make any sense. Or at NJP, where the chain of command representation generally speaks a little bit on like, hey,
or
chief,
a
what do you think about
for a sailor, and instead in the example,
like, come on.
If there's someone filling this role who has 16 sailors going up for this QRB, and instead of letting that person go who knows and you could argue and say, well, it should be in the brag sheet, it should be in the briefing card, you should have prepared it, right? But you can speak to those things if you can advocate better for someone that you know. And instead of passing my folder
nuance and everything,
to someone else,
it doesn't make sense.
That's my opinion.
You should be. No, it's not like you should be in that room. Like you, opinion or not, like I'm telling you, like if I was your CMC, you'd be in that room, because it makes too much sense for you not to be in that room. And sure, could I construct a scenario where I might change my mind? Of course I could. But 99% of the time, every scenario where I would have that chief, that billet that you're filling, if you were a chief in that room, you're going to be in the room.
Right.
But the excuse is like this. It's the same thing I talk about with like the chief season transparency thing. It's like they just decide that like there's like some unspoken like intangible whatever that chiefs have, or that chiefs like things that happen within like the connective tissue that like it's just a stupid thing they can't explain, and it's not real. It's just there's
your
this
strengths and things are exposed and blossom during this time is the way I would like to believe it to be. No one changes. If you're changing the kind of person that you are in 6 weeks,
right,
something is wrong.
But they're made to believe there's like this magic quality. It's part of the incompetence that is wired, is part of the wiring of the chief season, where in lieu of robust leadership development and education, it's like you're being indoctrinated into the club. And it's like, it's not all that, and it's not every mess, but a lot of the time, the training curriculum or continuum or whatever you want to call it is based in this like I'm gonna forget
this.
Sorta, yeah. But it's like I'm gonna forget if it was you or that other. I've been interacting with so many people lately, and one of them was a CT first class, also female. So I'm just
you'll understand when you get there. That was
I'm
me.
Sorry. Yeah, that was you. So like, you'll understand when you go through the chief season. It's like, it's because they don't know how to answer the question. They don't know what to say to you. They don't actually know the answer. So they come up with all these like gray area euphemisms. And it's like, that's not real. That's not, you're not going to figure it out when you go through the season. You're going to be more confused on the other end than you were at the beginning. And
you're now I'm thinking, well, shit, I missed it. Like, because they told me I was going to get it here. And then
here's the best one. Here's the best part is they're going to tell you, and it's in the creed. They're going to tell you that along the way, you're going to just discover, you're going to have all these moments of realization and aha moments throughout your time as a chief that, that's what they were trying to teach me. And I'm like, will that happen It will, 100%. Why is it happening? Because you didn't effectively communicate it the first time around. Because I didn't get the education I was supposed to from day one all the way up to and during the Chiefs season. Because you are an ineffective leader in that position where it's your responsibility to teach me this thing and make sure that I leave with the understanding that I need to be a good chief. And it didn't happen because you didn't know how to do it. That's the real answer. And it's not an indictment of that person. It's an indictment of the system.
Process.
It's an indictment of our lack of leadership development and education all along the way, which leads to a chief that doesn't know how to do that. It's not 99% of it's not their fault. It's just that's the construct. That's
right.
what we have. And that's what you have to operate within because there's nothing else.
There's nothing else
except for you getting lucky and finding a good mentor or
which is
a
what
Chiefs mess like I did or
right?
whatever.
But I try and I want to be as impactful as I possibly can. I want good things to happen for people, as many of them as I can possibly get involved with. And so I'm like, what can I do now? I don't want to wait. Like, what kind of stuff can you teach me now to make sure that day one I'm going and
which is
no hesitation. And the answers and sometimes I get good ones and then other times, you'll see. And this is my opinion, having been on only this side, that, man, that sounds like
I don't want to find out
wrong. Why would
later,
you hold that back from me? Why would you keep that magical leadership sauce behind the door?
Well, but
why wouldn't you want everyone to have it?
It's not real. They don't have it. There is no secret sauce. The emperor has no clothes. Like, it's not real.
But there's And there's this huge divide between the white hats and the khakis and the McPon going on Reddit. The answers in that Reddit thread, so many of them are,
I'm
what are
so
we doing
scared
about
for
the
him.
divide? Yeah.
I'm so scared for him I'm going to be, as long as I can be, I'm going to be on for that. I have
the day off tomorrow. I will be on.
I have class in the morning. I forget what time it was, but like, I'm going to do my best to monitor
this thing's at 1400 Eastern. So
that's my time
11?
would be noon. No, 11. Yeah. 11. I should be out of class. So I'll probably be at the library monitoring that.
Nice.
I don't think this man has any idea what Reddit is. And
I don't really have any idea what Reddit is. I just read stuff on there. That's all.
I have a little bit of an understanding. I don't think he has any idea what Reddit is. I think he has any idea what he's in for. When I got told, hey, you should post your podcast on Reddit by a listener years ago. So I'm like, okay. So I went to the Reddit sub, read the rules, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can post them. So I reached out to some mods and I was like, hey, a listener on my podcast directed me to the sub and said, hey, you should really post your stuff on Reddit. I think it would be valuable, blah, blah, blah. And so they were like, give us a minute to talk about it. And so all the mods like conferred. And I guess there was a couple of mods that were listeners that were super big advocates of mine.
And these are mods that for the Navy subreddit, not subreddit, like overall correct. Reddit rules, but like, okay.
Navy subreddit, which has its own rules. So they kind of conferred, and two or three of them were listeners and they were big advocates. So all the mods kind of came to a consensus of, yes, you can post your podcast here. But also I had a mod kind of give me a primer of like, look, man, I hope you understand what you're getting into because here's what's going to happen. And like, explain to me, like, you're a senior chief that's doing a podcast on
they're going to dump all over you.
They're going to eat your face, dude. And I was just like, I better people have tried and failed to lower my self-esteem. Like, it's not because they were like, we've had like do-gooder chiefs come with stuff like this before and get run off in short order. And I'm like, look, I appreciate your concern. I'll be fine.
Give me a second. I'll give it a shot.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I what a lot of times what happens is Redditors come to my defense in the comments that are listeners before I even get a chance to address negative comments. And so I usually don't have to. And then even when I do, I'm like, why don't you come on and talk about it with me? And which is not what they expect.
And has anyone ever been like, I would love to argue with you?
Not. So I would say the closest example I would have is Dan, who I'm going to talk to soon. and he's a Naval Special Warfare Tech first class that he was
he commented on the MCPON
the MCPON. I'm sure he did. He was hyper skeptical of me initially, but then when we talked, like, but he wasn't like maybe he did. I don't know. I don't think he did. He doesn't seem like the type, honestly, to like, maybe he flamed me in some comments at some point. I don't know. But like he was pushing back hard on certain things. And I don't think my response was typical of what he expected. And then he was, based on that, was willing to come on the podcast. And now, like,
you earned his respect.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I love him to death. He's a great dude. But
it's a Sailor 360 topic I'm trying to teach, is that we teach people to respect leaders and not trust them, like, or blindly, teach leaders to earn the trust. And that's a whole separate thing. But
I like it. But yeah, so a lot of times I'll diffuse their vitriol by the way that I respond, but I usually there was a nuke that I mean that person, I believe it was a female sailor. I'm not sure. I was just based on the Reddit name that I don't even remember and wouldn't repeat if I did, but I posted some stuff I did some podcasts with like Why Are Nukes Mad all the time. And it was with an enlisted nuke electrician. I've done some other nuke stuff with like the guy that runs the reactors critical and stuff. But the first one I posted just ate my face. Like it was, and you could tell it basically had nothing to do with me. It all had to do with their
represent every other chief they've ever met that has hurt their feelings.
And nuclear power too. Yeah, pretty much. And like the story that got relayed in that vitriol, I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I want to talk to you. I want you to come on and talk to me about all this. And if not on a podcast, we can get on a phone call. I won't even publish anything. I just want to talk to you about your experience. And based on like my response, because I basically was just like, what happened that made you this angry? And I mean that, like, I really want to know. I want you to explain it to me so that I can like understand. And I don't think they expected that. So then it became a little softer, but still pretty harsh criticism. And then they deleted the comments. And then
I hate when that happens.
When I posted another episode, I posted another one where I took some of their criticism into account and, like, cause I understand within that vitriol, there probably is some like little nuggets here and there pull from. There's a David Goggins thing where he was talking about trying to break the pull-up world record, and he would post videos of him doing pull-ups, and all these people would just like harshly dump on him about like you're never going to break this record. Your technique's terrible. You're too big. Your grip's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And they were doing it in a really harsh way. And he was just like analyzing it. And when he saw a trend, he's like, okay, yeah, they're being jerks, but also they might be right. Like my grip might be wrong. So then he would start looking into what's the optimal grip and what's this and that and technique stuff. And then he broke the pull-up world record. So it's like, I'm like, oh, okay. So like within all the
usefulness in the
right, I have thick enough skin that I can sift through all that and throw away the vitriol type comments, because I know it's coming from that place of, they're painting me as every other chief that did them wrong and blah, blah, blah. And it's fine. I can take it. And I understand that I have ownership in the Chiefs mess. Like I have some ownership in that negative experience that you had, even though I had no control over it. I still am part of that organization. I represent the Chiefs mess. So I understand. And I am trying my damnedest to fix some of that stuff. So, but yeah, and then they just commented on the next one, like this one was way better. Like,
oh, well, thanks.
Like it was
at least
real.
They listened again. At least they gave you another chance, and they were like.
And I think I just won over I earned the benefit of the doubt based on that interaction. And so when they listened the next time, they probably had a little more of a open-minded perspective as they were listening, and they were just like, okay, this one's much better. Because I don't even know how different it really was, but I had them in mind when I was recording it. And so, I mean, but as far as like just the Redditors that flame me, like I posted the episode and the video, I think, to How to Make Chief kind of about my board experience. And It was basically just board training. And I posted it, and because of the title only, they definitely didn't listen to it, because like it was like the comedic timing of within 10 seconds of the video posting on Reddit, somebody commented "be fat," and I was just like, I fell out of my chair laughing, and I was just like, the comedic timing and just the like, of course you said that. It was hilarious, but like the type of people that flame the stuff in that way without even listening to it, I mean, it's like, I just laugh it off. But then the ones that have harsh criticism, that where they're substituting like the horrible experiences they had with a chief or chiefs, they're substituting me with them and just using me as a target. It's like, I'll be your dartboard if it's cathartic. Like, I don't care, but I don't.
See, I disagree.
You're never going to get them to have a conversation with you anyway. Usually, like it'll be the ones that are a little like, their criticism can be harsh, but it's also like founded in logic and an intelligent articulation of it. And that was Dan when he
intelligent commented, articulation is what
that was the one where I was like, oh, come talk about it. Let's do it. Let's do a podcast and we can talk about it, because I love that. I want to have that discourse with people that disagree with me. I have absolutely no problem with you disagreeing with me. And I'm even open to like you convincing me that I'm in fact wrong. So let's talk about it, because I'm not an E6 right now. Like, I'm not in your position, or I'm not a junior sailor, or I'm not a nuke. I'm not a CT. I'm not any of these things. So you might be right. So let's talk about it. And like, and I want you to try to convince me. And that, that
not
kind of
everyone
dialogue
is like that. Some people are, this is it, and you're not here yet. Your voice doesn't matter. It's not as loud.
There are some things I would probably come across that way, where I'm digging my heels in, but I'm 100% open to debating certain things. And even with those things, the things that I feel like I'm pretty dug in on, I'm still open to somebody convincing me I'm wrong. Like, still, you could try to convince,
even if you don't get there.
You could try to convince me there's not a giant problem with leadership development and education in the Navy. I will
do your best. Person. Right.
I will talk to that person.
Have you seen those memes with the sign?
But I'll talk to you about it.
Right.
Like, I'll talk to you about it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that one is pretty clear cut, but like, I'll talk to anybody about it.
The thing that gets me, that, people can blast and post crap on the internet all the time, and that's fine. I get it. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes, like the get that one, that's funny. That I'm not.
That was hilarious. Funny. I was dying.
Going through the responses to that initial like McPon's on Reddit and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and so many.
I'm wondering. Talk to me about that, because I haven't gotten to look at it yet. I would love to know. Well, there was some like at least the theme. You don't have to go into details if you don't want
to. There was the first post, like, I don't know, somewhere 7 to 10 days ago ish, that his staff had said, "We hear you, McPon's on Reddit. Put your
I saw that. And I commented on that, and I was like, I'm happy to have him on the podcast if he wants to."
I would say probably 20 to 30% of the comments were beards. Cool, that's fine. Like, I'm not discounting. I want people to have. I submitted a request to the Uniform Matters office a few weeks ago, requesting that all males have the same grooming standards as all females, just because I don't see why not. Period. But that's different story. But anyway.
Yeah.
But beards was a big
thing. I could have a ponytail.
Why not? Why not?
I don't know. Why not? I'd like, the only argument against beards is like the face seal thing, which is absolutely shenanigans. And here's why. I've been a submariner. I was a submariner my entire career. Every single time we shut the hatch, we started growing beards until outsiders came on board, and then we would shave for like inspections and whatever. But to say I can't get, I have combated a casualty involving smoke more than once with facial hair, and my face seal was just fine. I was sucking rubber in a real fire, and it was fine. Like, so,
I haven't seen that argument mask in over 12 years. I don't know that I could find one if I needed one.
Yeah, that too. So I don't think there's any reason why shore sailors, like if you're on shore duty, there are no arguments for not having a beard.
I agree with that, but I also don't think it should be sea versus shore, because they have plenty of people on sea duty who sit at a desk or don't. It should be like a ponytail. You can't have a ponytail if it's risky. Can't have a beard if it's risky.
Right. And that's what I mean. Like, but on a ship, because most surface sailors won't agree with me, but on a submarine, everybody is a damage controlman. Like a DC's primary duty is every submariner's collateral duty. Like everybody fights the ship. And I challenge you to the reason why we think about it that way is because like nobody's been shot at in a really long time. Like go listen to,
which is a whole other problem about.
I have an episode called Determined Response that was with James Parlier, who was the command master chief of the USS Cole when it was bombed. Oh. Go listen to that episode if you haven't already. Everybody on board that ship, if something explodes like that, is going to fight that ship. And that means a damage control response. And the competent damage control response that happened is the only reason the USS Cole is still real. So it's like if you're on an operational ship or submarine, you are in that environment. And so, and I'm not saying you can't get a face seal with a beard, but what I am saying is you're trying to overcome it's like a Navash study or like some other study where they supposedly studied this and came up with like objective quality evidence saying that you can't get a proper face seal with a beard. And I'm like, so that's what you're going up against. And you're never going to win that argument. So it's like,
I don't know about never.
That's pretty close.
I don't know.
I'm just saying like,
that came from someone who couldn't grow a solid beard and decided to say, yeah, no one else can have them since I can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a rigid adherence to what they believe to be like some sort of a tradition, even though go look at pictures of my dad on a destroyer in Vietnam. Right. And it's not real. So I
had this conversation with one of my parents' friends who is a old Air Force veteran about just why not? Not because I really think it mattered, like the earring thing. It's not changing people's lives, but it's helping. Yeah. And there's no good reason why not. Why can't men have long hair? It's not a safety issue. It's because we have long hair. We make it work. Women have been in the Navy for decades.
It could be in certain scenarios, but not many. Like, so for instance, long hair in your face while you're operating a food mixer is a recipe to get scalped.
Okay, so what do your females do?
They tie their hair back.
Okay,
I'm not saying you can. Yeah. I'm with you.
Men follow the same grooming standards as female. Don't let your hair grow down to your butt crack, but grow your hair if you want to.
Yeah. I would argue.
Put it back if you have to. Whatever.
I would argue there might be scenarios where it's a bad idea, but I don't know what they are because, like, it's possible. But I'm with you that like. Most of the time, there's no reason why they couldn't be the same.
Women are doing all the things that men are doing, like 99.9% in the Navy.
And that's what I'm thinking is like the tiny percentile, like could SOCOM make an argument for a female Navy SEAL that's not even real yet, not having long hair? I don't know. Maybe.
But aren't they I've never been a Navy SEAL before. Long hair?
A fair point. Right? Not like it's not. I'm not saying it's long not like locks. It's out of regs, but it's not as long as yours. Right. Yeah, it's they're definitely not conforming to grooming standards, but like
and you can be professional without having like that type of haircut, and it's not about uniformity because we have black boots, brown boots, 8-point ball cap. Yep.
Everything's
bun,
optional.
Short hair.
Now you can have like wear the patches, don't wear the patches. Wear brown boots, wear not brown boots.
You can wear just one patch if you want to. Like it's not about uniformity. So that's a crap response. Right. Like I don't know.
I'll say professionalism because that's much more ambiguous. What does that even mean? You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't look professional. Okay, define that. Oh, you can't? Weird. I'm shocked.
Cool. Yeah. That's the same thing with complimentary. That's why we got rid of that because your idea. Yeah. So that's, but.
Unbecoming.
My point is people bashing things on the internet just to be mad. Yeah. Just to be heard. Just to whine like a child.
You're such an easy target if you're like, I'm the McPon and I look like I'm 70. Ask me anything.
Right.
It's like, okay.
I think I said it earlier. I learned. I was complaining all the time. I couldn't stop letting people know how I was the victim of what these people did to me, and and I just complained about stuff all the time. And then I learned that there's a difference between complaining and whining, and speaking in a way that will get your voice heard, and earning that.
There's also a difference between like, so those people that are articulating, like that are like venting their frustrations on the world, to me, that's just a siren for there's a need not being met for this person, whatever it is. So let's start addressing that need as leaders, and they won't be doing that the same way. I think that they'll, along with leadership development and education, they'll arrive at the place that you did much sooner. They'll find that if my needs are being met, I'm not going to be angry at the world on the same scale. Like, the military is still going to be freaking hard, right? And they're still going to be stressed out and not get enough sleep and all this other stuff. But they're not going to be so angry about it. So when they do articulate themselves, it's much more likely that a trained eye, and that's an important part of it, is going to interpret that as an unmet need that I can fix, and I'm going to go do that because that's my responsibility as their leader.
Right. But there's also, especially to the MCPON, how is he going to say, sure, oh, you're really pissed, sorry? Like, that's not going to help you.
What's he going to say? What's he going to say? Yeah.
And when you have 200 comments being like,
right,
this is a waste of time. So they're not even putting their comments. They're just saying it's a waste of time.
Yeah. They're kind of not wrong though, because based on the vitriol that came from Russ Smith's all hands call on I think it was a George Washington, wasn't it? Am I right about that? I get, for some reason, the Bush.
The lower your standards. Washington, I don't remember which ship it was, but
he never said lower your standards. He never said that.
I know. But there's T-shirts that say
the debacle. Yeah, I know. The debacle that happened, though, what became extremely apparent to me when that happened is no one has any idea what the MCPON does for a living. No one knows what his duties and responsibilities are, because he got pissed off, I think, during that all hands call, which is kind of why it went the way that it went. A little. That's my intuition speaking by listening and reading the transcript and stuff. But I think he got upset because he has put in an ungodly amount of effort and hours into doing the maddening task of arguing with a suffocating bureaucracy to try to get funding for things like childcare and housing and really think needs that
just
everybody's quick to make them
problems.
Yeah, no, like I would argue like the types of problems that they're raging about in the first place, because like everybody's quick to make a meme about all those things and quick to share articles about how there's mold in the barracks and all these other things. Unknowingly, like they're ignorant of, sorry, words are hard. They're ignorant of the things that he's doing, because he's not running around saying, look what I'm doing on social media. But he has been advocating and fighting tooth and nail to get these things and when they're telling him, because they have no idea what his role is, he's 17 layers removed from the things that you're pissed about. It's not his job to fix your habitability and housing situation. Right.
Yes.
And I understand that they're thinking to themselves, well, my chain of command's not going to do it, even though it is their responsibility. And then it's the next level and the next level and the next level.
I've told my chain of command
10 more levels
6 months straight
before it's the MCPON's problem. You know what I mean? And so like to him, he's just like, okay, like I guess I'll like go buddy. Ask. All that's going to happen when you bring a specific issue at a specific command that's not being addressed by the immediate chain of command,
they're going to go right back to your command.
Worst case scenario, he's going to close the door behind your CMC and say, what's going on? And okay, you better fix this rapidly. Or he's going to go to like whatever the next echelon is, like the flag level CMC, and say, you need to go fix your C1X DMC. And because that like the triad on that carrier could have fixed this problem with a snap of their fingers. And they ended up doing that as soon as they got all that publicity, which is absurd. Yeah. But it's like the MCPON can't run around and like be everyone's superhero that dives into the details of the operation of your command day to day and fixes your specific problem. And you see it's probably counterproductive. You see Joanne Bass is the MCPON of the Air Force, essentially the command sergeant major of the Air Force. She's very active on social media. And when big military meme sites and stuff tag her and stuff, she looks into it. And sometimes she fixes it. And it's like, can you afford, is that your role as the senior enlisted of your service? I don't know. Maybe a little, maybe. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying she shouldn't be doing what she's doing at all. I think she's amazing. I'm trying to get her on the podcast. But I also think that it, like, there's a huge leadership failure, just an epic failure of 17 different layers of leadership. If she's the one that's got to swoop in with her chief master sergeant of the Air Force cape on,
where's every single person that
God bless her
between there?
God bless her for looking into it, and I'm sure she's face punching a bunch of chief master sergeants.
That's what I was gonna say.
Along the way,
fix it, and then on my way back,
or remediating
about it. Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's not her job to swoop in like a superhero, even though I love that she's doing it. And the MCPON can't really be expected to do that either, because all the bandwidth that he or she diverts from advocating for you in testifying before Congress and doing whatever other ridiculous navigation of a bureaucracy that they have to do to try to wrangle funding and support for all the things that they are trying to do for enlisted sailors in their branch of service. It's like, I don't want the MCPON diverting his attention from getting 100 childcare centers stood up for sailors across the fleet.
I don't think sailors are asking MCPON to do the things. They want to be heard. They want to know that their issues are valid, and they would like a little bit of transparency. For example, one of the things was, hey, what are we doing? Like, look at all these pay problems. What are we doing? And the response was, we messed up and we closed PSDs too early. Okay. Yeah, I think your answer should be, here's our plan. We're going to activate this many reservists over the next quarter. We're going to fill this or create this many billets over the next 3 years, or whatever the case is. Come up with a plan to say, we're working.
Yeah. To an extent it happens. So and the reason I say that is, go look up some of the stuff. And I don't know, he might have retired. I was kind of hoping he was going to be the MCPON, honestly. His name's Wes Koschhofer. He's a fleet master chief. I believe CNP. I believe he's that one. What Russ Smith was before. And I went to an all hands call that he did, and I've seen some videos that he did. And he does a lot of that, explaining what we're trying to do to fix the gap that PSD created with a bunch of apps and interfacing new programs and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, is it going to work? I don't know. Probably not. But like, he is answering those questions. This is what we're doing about it. And I wish more. And again, like, when I get into the fleet master chief thing, and I'm going to talk to Paul Kings very soon. So hopefully I'll get some of this answered. But, it's like, there are fleet master chiefs that I think should be answering those questions, and whatever, I think it was CNP's, he was the CNP one, whatever that is. Like, I mean, I know it's chief of naval personnel, but I don't know like what fleet master chief name,
their aide person. Right.
Well, yeah, he's the CMC that is the fleet associated with that. But like, I don't remember what the exact term is, but yeah, it doesn't matter.
Something staff.
But they're dealing with all like the personnel type issues. So that would be he's the main event, really. He's the one that's going to answer those questions. And he does. Like, and I don't even know if he's still in that position, but when he was there, he did a pretty good job of answering a lot of those questions. And I thought it was awesome.
We could use more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think about it though, he's kind of like one of the only ones that is equipped to answer those questions. Whereas you go and look at a fleet master chief that's at like NETSI. He's education and training. Like, you got questions about education and training.
I got you.
That's your person. But don't ask me about why PSD's gone. And so like, this guy came from whatever it was, Pac Fleet. So like, and I don't know where he was before that. Maybe he has some CNP experience. I don't know. But like, if you ask Honia about this stuff, like, I don't know if he knows the answer. Like, you can't expect a guy in that position to have the type of granular visibility that somebody like the CNP guy does. Right. So it's like, if you want to ask those questions, and that's my point about no one knows what the MCPON does, is like, ask the person that actually knows the answer to that question and has cognizance over the thing you're concerned about. The MCPON, by virtue of being the MCPON, like that doesn't mean that that person knows everything about everything just because they're overlord of the Navy enlisted population.
Right.
It's like, so you can't,
and that's why the pre-post came
competently
out.
Answer those
Give
questions.
us your questions now so that they can come up screen, right? They're going to get rid of ones they don't want to answer. But also,
so ask me anything, asterisk.
Ask me something now
ask
that
me
I can
anything,
choose to
not
answer
really.
Tomorrow.
That's stupid. I don't like that.
Ideally, and we've had this before. We'll have visitors come to the command and they'll say, submit your questions to us, just so that way they can have a response, because it's kind of useless to be like, hey, I need this thing. And they say, good question. I'm going to have to go back and then we'll email you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, like, it is. But put up guardrails, but I don't think screening questions is the move either. Because if you're going to do an ask me anything on Reddit, which I don't think is the right forum for him
Reddit is the
to
most
do
dangerous
this.
one to do.
Yeah, I don't think this is the move, my dude, but we're going to see. I applaud his courage, which I don't even think is courage. I think it's ignorance. I think his staff is like, this is a really good idea that'll make him relatable to sailors or something. And he's going to get his face eaten and realize this was a terrible idea because his staff probably doesn't have a great understanding of Reddit either.
Yeah.
So they're just like, they think it's a good idea. And I think it's a good idea, sort of. I just don't think he's the guy that should be doing it. I think there are people like Wes Koschhofer when he was in that position that would have been an excellent Ask Me Anything on Reddit. One, because he's a submariner. So I know he would have navigated all those BS like flame questions very well. And just like, if you listen to him speak, I feel like he's just the type of dude that would be able to navigate that really well. But also like April Beldo would have done a great job too. Like if you listen to her speak, I don't think Honea even knows what Reddit is. And I don't think he knows what he's getting himself into. And I don't think he's, I'm going to say capable. Equipped is better. I don't think he has the granular level of knowledge that's going to be required to satisfy the appetite for answers, like the types of questions that he's going to get. I just don't, he doesn't know the answer. So how is he going to, you know what I mean? Like you're going to get a lot of that gobbledygook, talking in circles, non-answer answers because he doesn't have the answer.
Right.
There might be some stuff he gives you a great articulate answer on because it happens to be a thing he knows about. But it's just
if you don't know, it's okay. And this is that all right. It's okay to say, I don't know, but I'm going to find out who does. And I'll hook you up with them, or I'll get it and I'll get it to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it up. Like,
right. And he has,
we know you don't know. We can tell.
Right. And he has the smart people and the infrastructure around him to not just say that, but then turn around and like, which he probably won't do either, but like to turn around and then have like, okay, I don't know the answer to that in this like detail that you're looking for, but I will find out who does. I will get you that answer. And within 7 days, there will be a YouTube video posted on my account with that person answering that question. If not, that would be hold me accountable on whatever platform, and my PAO because they have the PAOs active on Reddit. They have a whole staff of public affairs people, but he also has they call him an executive assistant, I think. And it's a post tour CMC that basically like helps him just shoulder the load of all the crap he's got to deal with. So like, yeah, you know, like you could put a point of contact out for one of the PAO probably, or the executive assistant, and they'll hold me accountable to making sure that actually happens.
And it's absolutely possible.
That would be oh yeah, it'd be easy. That's easy money, but they're not going to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because this is what is affecting the Navy 20 years from now, is that we are not going to be able to keep people in the Navy that we need to do the jobs and do them well, because we're not taking care of them, because to us, the Navy, like they're just another human body in a uniform that's not a human, and we don't care about anything, and except that you do your job. And if you want to go, we'll just get a new one. Well, surprise. One, you're not going to be able to get new people. And also, the quality of people you have is going to affect our ability to win wars.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to do then? I don't understand how people are not having the forethought to think about the big picture. And it drives me insane that there's not enough give a damn about the human factor, and that we create all these programs to make sure that we take care of these things, to check a box. The Human Factors Council. Have you heard of that thing? It's a extended operational stress control subcommittee made up of mandatory people are COXO, CMC, Chaplain, DAPA, SAPR, all the like collaborative holders have to meet and discuss the sailors to see if anyone has a problem or not. How about you just do the job and know what's going on with your people and not
because they don't know how.
I know, but
they don't know how.
I know. But we do this and say, "Oh, well, we did our screen and no one's
we
a
box
problem."
checked the thing. I don't know why there's a problem. We had our council on human,
but they were okay.
What?
Yeah,
I don't understand why.
It just drives me crazy. Like I saw this thing on Facebook today that just in my small geographical area, there was $700,000 given out by the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society last year alone.
Why?
And
I'm not saying I'm just saying, like, those problems could probably be solved by competent leadership. See what I mean? I'm not saying the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society doesn't have a mission that will never go away. But what I am saying,
it should be our primary resource.
That figure should probably be way less.
Right. We have people who are 10 months behind on BAH. And the answer that we are told to give them is tell them to go to Navy Marine Corps Relief Society alone. They'll get back pay. Well, that back pay is not going to have the 24% interest that they owe their credit card to pay their rent. Like, there's so many. Yeah. There's so many problems.
I know. That's the title of the podcast, and I'm gonna wrap it up right here because I'm starving.
It's so late.
We can do it again though because I feel like there's a lot more to talk about.
I could do this all day and never.
Oh yeah, hey, let's do it. I'm gonna get you to start a podcast for me too. Let's go.
I
will conduct training, and I would. You should.
I actually
have a
read
lot to say.
the Navy social media handbook the other day just to try to figure out because
about TikTok stuff.
Right. But because I want to be involved. I want to do stuff. I don't want to and even in your initial response to me of like, that's why you did this podcast. I don't want to go start my own podcast. I'm not the greatest person on the planet. I don't want to go get new followers. Like this thing exists and I want to contribute to something awesome.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying is I have a new mission to turn this podcast platform into Proceedings Magazine, the podcast, basically.
I'm in.
I'm already talking to two people about who either already have an existing mechanism that they're having a hard time keeping up with, or they were interested in starting their own thing. That was the other CT that I was talking to. Wants to do like a mental health based podcast and has a lot of the infrastructure to do it already. And I'm like, look, like instead of you having to deal with all of the barriers to entry, and because I pay a lot of fees and subscription fees and equipment fees and all this other stuff, but I have an LLC. I can deduct a lot of this stuff in my taxes. I am getting paid money now. So like I have a Patreon. I have eventually the YouTube thing I'll be able to monetize it. You have to get like a certain number of subscribers now and all this other crap.
Hit the threshold.
So I'm working towards that. Yeah, I'm working towards that. And then I have the DGUTS apparel thing, which there's a little bit of income coming from there. So I'm not even coming out of pocket anymore. So I've told these people, I'm like, look,
I got this really cool microphone.
That's sick. Why are you using that right now? I couldn't see it.
No, it's just hidden off on my laptop. Sorry.
I mean, it should probably be closer to your face, but that's another conversation for another time.
Sorry.
It's all good. You're fine.
Lesson learned.
But what I'm talking to these people about is like whether or not you want to do your own thing or not, which it sounds like one person wants to do their own thing and it's going to be aimed at the Intel community, but mental health based. So I think it'll apply to a lot of people. And so I'm like, dude, I will remove a lot of the barriers to entry and you can just, I'll publish it for you under my like banner, but it's like, it'll be all you doing your own thing. I will help you in any way that I can, but I'll take a lot of the burden of all of the crap that kind of keeps people from doing it regularly anyway. And then like the other person I'm talking to was doing their own thing, but like life happens and like they're busy working full time and doing all this other stuff. So it's like they're passionate about it, but they can only do it sporadically. I'm like, neat. Send me what you have when you have it and I'll publish it. And so same thing for you. Like whenever you have the time and bandwidth and want to rant on something, whether it's just you, whether it's you and someone else, I don't care. It doesn't have to be you and I strictly. Like you and I can just do this, but like just do it, record it, send it my way. And I'll take it from there. I'll edit. And I'm up to like even giving you, like, I'll give you the login for this service, which I might switch to another service, but you could use this to that way. Like, cause I have this footnotes function that you can't see. You probably just have the chat box, but I have like a tab where I have chat and then I have footnotes. And so like every time I've cursed or like when I said that one thing that I wanted to edit out about the squadron number, I just footnoted it. So I don't even have to edit the whole thing. I go back to the moments where I need to edit and then do that. So it's
that's cool. That's useful.
Yeah. You could use whichever service I'm on, do it that way. And then I can edit it for you with your footnotes and like, you're done. I'll do an intro, outro. I'll do the same thing I do for everything else, publish it. The end. Your work here is done. And you have access to my audience, my tools, all the things. Right. And so that's what my goal is because there's a lot of people that have a lot of really great things to say and perspectives and opinions and analysis
no vehicle
and whatever.
To do so.
And no vehicle to do it, but also no real desire to create one because it's not the easiest thing in the world. Like starting a podcast is like, you say that and it doesn't mean the same thing really to different people. There are people out there that like get a free Anchor account and a crappy USB mic and go. And I'm not telling you not to do that. That's a great way to start, but you're probably, unless you're like a neuroscientist with some super interesting, you know what I mean? Like where I can only get it from you. So it doesn't, I'm going to be willing to accept a lower quality product from a genius that I can only get the thing from them. Whereas this kind of stuff, it's like, you gotta play the game and hustle and get the audience and listeners and viewers.
Keep them
in
and right.
Yep. And not everybody wants to do that. Some people just have something really awesome to say. And I'm like, and I think I want to facilitate them saying it.
I think that is you because especially I've been in the beginning. I think I'm maybe to 2019 right now, but there's plenty of episodes where you're like, I'm messing with my mic in the car and it sounds like crap. And I'm just like, I don't care. Just come talking. Yeah. Like, I'm here to listen. And like, I don't care about the quality. It's the stuff. It's the message that comes that matters to me.
Right.
But I just want to fill a need. I just want to help how I can.
Yeah.
I mean, I got lots of stuff that I would say, and can say. I'm not against saying, but whatever you need, I'm like,
there's so many problems.
Fired up about.
It's going to be the name of the series. I can see it now. I'm already like I'm painting the picture in my mind.
The article that I'm working on, I'm trying to divide it into sub articles, but I'm pretty sure the title is going to be something along the lines of like the Navy is falling apart and it's all our fault. Like, it's our fault. It's not your fault. I'm not blaming anybody, like, because a lot of people would. But I mean, that's so true. And then maybe someone's going to be like, oh my God, what did you say? And maybe they'll read it. But I don't know. I was looking for it. I have a bunch of printed, like
I'll do. You can do audio reads of your articles.
My boss, but
let's go.
Yeah,
I'm pumped.
Me too.
You're now an unofficial member of the DGUTS podcast network. That's
cool.
Not really it. I'm working on it.
Put it on my new cup. I haven't done anything.
Put it on your eval. I'll send you some stickers.
No, I have the stickers. I have them. I'm just I'm building a cup, but
I like it.
Yeah, no, I have.
You're about to move, right? Because you're PCSing.
Yes.
So, yeah, I forgive you.
Everything's a disaster. So.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up here.
Okay, sorry.
This was dope. Don't be sorry. This was super fun. I really enjoyed talking to you. I want to talk to you again. And I really, really want you to consider using your super sweet microphone to record some of this stuff. And then we'll do a series of podcasts for as long as you want to. Because I think you've got a lot of really cool things to say. And I think it would be cool. I want to hear it because this is one of the things that I'm most excited about doing this for is like, I want to hear you talk about things where it's just you. Or you with someone that's not me, because I don't want everything here to be filtered through my context only.
Right.
And like the first guys that I got on the hook, they just wanted to do a few, I think, like a series. where the first thing they were going to talk about is that MCPON debacle, the all hands call thing. And they had a couple other topics like the Chiefs Mess divide, stuff like that. A couple of first classes, I forget the community. And they invited me on like to be part of it. And I'm like, oh yeah, totally. I'll do it. But then I was like, nah, actually, no, I don't want to be on it. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, I want to hear you two talk about it. And I want my listeners to hear you two talk about it. And I'll do like a outro thing where I kind of like
endorse it, get the hook.
Yeah. Or not, or you'll get 10 minutes of me saying why I think you're wrong. I don't know. It depends on what it is. And I won't like go in on anybody, but I'm just saying like, there's a lot of value in those perspectives, and it'll give me an understanding I don't have. It'll give the listeners a perspective that they're not getting currently. And I just think it'll be super interesting and fun and provide diverse content and all the things. Like, I don't see a downside yet. I might be wrong, but like, I just think it's just like Proceedings Magazine. It's just like, I think the varying interpretations of what's going on and varying proposed solutions and all those things are just like, there's nothing but value to be had from that. So
I agree.
I think it could be really cool. So
I'm in.
Right,
I'll figure it out. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
your
doing
time.
this.
Sorry, it took a very long time. Probably longer than
standard.
I thought.
This is standard. This is
I don't know what they're
like
before like editing or anything.
Oh yeah, I don't.
So I wasn't sure.
I don't chop much out. Like it's going to be a 3-hour podcast most likely because I got to do the intro, outro, and add music.
Right.
Too, yeah. So it'll be 3 hours.
Okay,
for sure. But
I'm not mad. I had a blast. Great time.
Awesome.
Yes,
Me
we
too.
will talk
Thank
soon.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this.
All right, I hope you all enjoyed that. I clearly had a good time, and I'm very much looking forward to getting that podcast online, getting you guys another perspective from just like, if you think about it, like I it's like a mini me, but also wildly different in a lot of ways, both like being a woman in the military, being in the intel community, like being at a different stage as far as like she's a first class right now. Hopefully going to pick up chief eventually or whatever path she decides to go. But yeah, I'm really excited to get different perspectives that are not like influenced by me directly anyway. Like, I mean, she obviously listens, but it's like instead of my having a conversation with everybody and being involved and potentially like influencing the lens through which they see all these things, it's like I'm very excited to start getting a lot of different perspectives and like topics and all kinds of things mixed in so that there's a much more diverse like outlook and perspective, even if it's divergent from my own. So I'm really excited about that. Hers might not always be divergent from my own because like I said, we're very similar. But I'm very excited. I got a bunch of other stuff where I'm talking to a bunch of other people about doing very similar things. And being contributors. So I'm very excited for that. And I hope you all enjoy this podcast because you're going to hear a lot more from her along the way. So like always, if you need anything from us, hit us up. Don't give up the ship podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up the Ship Podcast, or you can DM us on Instagram, Reddit, or Discord at dgutspodcast. If you want to support us, you can go to the website. There's a donate button, dgutspodcast.com, or you can go get some naval pride and heritage gear you'll actually wear in public at dgutapparel.com. We got a whole different thing going on there with all the apparel and the stickers and all the things. I'm very excited to start working on some new stuff there. And then as always, I plugged it at the beginning, but if you're willing to and you're able, go over to patreon.com/dgutspodcast. Check out all the tiers, all the benefits, all the things. And if you can and you're willing, please consider becoming a patron. It supports us tremendously, allows us to expand the platform and do all kinds of things without having to come out of pocket for all the expenses. I am not paying myself a paycheck from any of the platform income. I am just trying to pay all the bills, not out of pocket, and then use the rest of the money to expand it to do more and more cool things and create more content and just expand in a way that's meaningful to the audience. So if you can and you're willing to, those are all the ways that you can support us. If you don't want to commit money to it, just go subscribe on YouTube, share the content, tag your friends, review us on all the platforms for podcasts and all the other things. And that helps as well. So if you can't support us directly monetarily, there's all kinds of other ways that you can. And it's very, very helpful to get the word out. And with that, that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship. Hey, shout out to the patrons out there that are supporting the podcast platform via our Patreon. I really appreciate all of you. Victoria Living Good, and William McIver are level 5s, which is still insane to me that you Saints are willing to support us on that level and in that way. 2 level 2s, we got Arianna, and we got Greg, and then we got Seth and Ryan at level 1. You're all amazing. I appreciate all of you, and you're enabling not only for us to not be supporting this out of pocket, but also for us to expand into areas we've always wanted to, because now we have the funds to do it. So I really appreciate all of you. If you want to support us in that way, please go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast and become a patron today. Please hit the like button, drop a comment down below on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel.